Chapter 690. As soon as he stepped on the oily ground and stretched, Chen Guang felt refreshed. Someone once told him that the air in foreign countries smelled particularly fresh, but he didn't believe it. Today, he finally experienced it himself. With his nose, which was comparable to an analytical instrument, he came to the following conclusion: it's really fresh. The oxygen ion content is at least 1/10,000th higher than in China. Well, this was pure nonsense. It was all a psychological effect. Besides, there must be cities with good air quality in the United States, but certainly not Detroit, which used to be a heavy industrial city. Pierce was particularly enthusiastic. He even wanted to drag Chen Guang to his club as soon as he got out of the car. He firmly believed that as long as he let this young man walk around the club and see the other young men working hard in pursuit of their dreams, and then look at the achievements of boxing champions like Mayweather, Pacquiao, and Holyfield, all of them, he would be able to do it. Finally, he would use the simplest and easy-to-learn technique to teach him the correct way to exert force, allowing him to punch with half of the techniques of a professional boxer. Then, he would definitely understand how terrifying the lethality of his fists were. For others, it might be a victory that they had to fight for with their lives, but for him, it might just be a matter of one punch. God is really unfair. But this was also good. He had to first let him know that it was not difficult to become a boxing champion, and then he could arouse this young man's interest. Pierce became more and more excited as he thought about it. He even wanted to jump and walk, and he forgot about the jet lag. However, the veteran netizen Lord Guang said, "Mr. Pierce, don't panic. Let me buy a phone card first. You can skip meals for a day, but you can't skip the internet for half a day. Mr. Chen, my club is also very famous in Detroit. After we get there, if you are interested, we can try the entry-level special training today. You have to know that if ordinary boxers invite me to do special training for them before the game, my fee is $10,000 a day." Pierce said proudly. With his status in the North American boxing world, his private special training was really worth $300,000 a month. Only top boxers could afford to invite him. Chen Guang knew that Su Tao was fond of talents, and he could also understand the latter's feelings. The more one's eyesight was, the more they would be able to understand the value of that simple punch. Even if they saw the same thing, everyone's thoughts were completely different. Pierce saw the shadow of him becoming a boxing champion. Wu Shan even knew the number 800 kilograms, but he had never thought about it in his mind. But Chen Guang really had no intention of becoming a boxing champion. So he said awkwardly while fiddling with his SIM card, "Well, Mr. Pierce, we just flew half the world, and our biological clock is not quite right now. Why don't we take a good rest?" "Oh no, we can't do this. The arm wrestling competition is tomorrow morning, and it's 11 a.m. right now. From my experience, we can't sleep now, absolutely not. You have to at least last until 9 p.m., and then get a good night's sleep. We'll leave tomorrow at 6 a.m., and we'll arrive at the competition venue around 8 p.m. When it came to adjusting the biological clock, Pierce obviously had more say. Chen Guang was also helpless. The old man's words were too reasonable, and he had no choice but to accept it. Actually, he had other plans. The laboratory where Sun Xiaoxuan did her internship was in a university in a small town near Detroit. After the arm wrestling competition the day after tomorrow, he planned to take a stroll in Sun Xiaoxuan's laboratory. Calculating the time, it was almost time for her to go back to China. If they could make it in time, he would go back with her. Thinking about it, Sun Xiaoxuan must be quite depressed. She was introduced to this laboratory by her relatives, and she stayed there for the whole summer. If he suddenly appeared in front of her, she would be overjoyed, right? She might also be so excited that she directly jumped into his arms, right? Alas, if it were in the past, he would definitely hold her tightly with peace of mind. But now there was still a knot in his heart. Unlike other girls, Sun Xiaoxuan, a girl from the Jiangnan region, was really too innocent and cute, and people could not bear to hurt her. If he had to make her sad, he might as well start to keep a distance from her now. It was better than pushing her away when she was beyond redemption, right? Alas, otherwise, he would secretly look at her, and then turn around and leave. He did not know if he could still face her with the same state of mind as before next semester. Thinking about it, it was still difficult. Ever since the end of the final exams, too many things had happened, making people unable to help but sigh. Not even 2 months had passed, but it gave him a feeling as if a lifetime had passed. This couldn't be blamed on others. Chen Guang had lived in the Sea of Moments for a whole 200 years, and after coming out, he hadn't seen Sun Xiaoxuan for a long time, so it was inevitable that he would feel a sense of distance. He had forgotten that he had lived as an old monster in the Sea of Moments, but for Sun Xiaoxuan, it had only been less than 2 months. Moreover, he could chat with him from time to time on the internet, and he often saw and heard news about him on the internet and in the class chat. For Sun Xiaoxuan, Chen Guang had never left, and his shadow had never faded. On the contrary, because of the distant ocean, his longing had continuously deepened. Many things had indeed happened to Chen Guang, but the only things that were reported were Jin Shiyue and Zhuo Jingxi. Sun Xiaoxuan did not care about what happened between Chen Guang and Jin Shiyue. In her heart, she unconditionally chose to believe every word that came out of Chen Guang's mouth. What she really cared about was the words that Chen Guang had said to Zhuo Jingxi at the press conference. She remembered Gao Ye's warning that teacher Zhuo was definitely interested in Chen Guang, so she had to be careful. She somewhat regretted not paying attention at that time, and it turned out that teacher Zhuo had indeed beaten her to it. Although she did not know what the relationship between the two was, Sun Xiaoxuan did not have the courage to take the initiative to ask either of them. She was afraid that she would get an answer that would make her despair. But she knew that Zhuo Jingxi had definitely gone further than her. But even if she knew, what could she do? She had missed such a good opportunity in the hotel outside Wujing City Hospital. What else could she do? If she did not have to finish the experiment here, she would have returned to China a long time ago. Now, she was more anxious than anyone else. The only good news was that she heard that teacher Zhuo had also come to the United States. It seemed that he was a small leader in a university laboratory in California as a photocatalyst laboratory. It seemed that he would not be returning to China for a while. I will not give up like this, nor will I easily admit defeat. Since you took advantage of the fact that I went abroad first, then don't blame me for rushing back before you and taking back the Chen Guang that belongs to me. Even if you are my teacher, I will not give up an inch. It is precisely because you are my teacher that I will not easily admit defeat. There is no reason for a teacher to steal a student's boyfriend. In Sun Xiaoxuan's previous 20 years of life, she had never had such a resolute thought. She was always so weak, trying hard to understand and tolerate everyone around her, and was willing to believe in everyone. Even when she encountered Pan Jiang, it did not cast too much of a shadow in her heart. She did not hate Pan Jiang that much. But this time, it was about her love, and she did not want to retreat or admit defeat. She recalled what Gao Ye had said in her heart again and again. Although you are not as tall as teacher Zhuo, and you are not as voluptuous as her, you are a different woman from her. You are Sun Xiaoxuan, the belle of the class that has been underestimated. Teacher Zhuo is tall and voluptuous, but you are also petite and cute. It is only because of Chen Guang's annoying school belle best friend, Wenwen, that you are overshadowed in Jinhuan College. You are too low-key yourself. If you dress up a little, even if the entire Gokyo University were to choose a school belle, there would still be a place for you. Chen Guang is very outstanding, but you are not bad either. Besides, we have been classmates for 3 years, so we know each other very well. Lin Jingwei secretly told me that there are so many porn videos in that guy's computer. You should be braver and cook the rice for him. How can he not admit it? You know that he is a responsible person. People change. Chen Guang had been through a lot during this period of time, and he had changed a lot. Sun Xiaoxuan was facing the risk of losing Chen Guang, as well as her best friend Gao Ye's constant encouragement, so she had been trying her best to become tougher and more aggressive. Living in the more fashionable and free United States, she also began to learn to put on some light makeup. Female guards always put on makeup when they liked them. This was an unchanging truth. Sun Xiaoxuan had also grown up. She could not accept that kind of heavy makeup style, but with her foundation, a little light makeup was just right. Now, when she walked on the foreign campus, she was filled with the elegance of an Eastern beauty. In the past 2 months, she had been pursued by many brave and heroic foreign boys, but she already had someone in her heart, so they all hit a wall. Today, she was still beautiful. The experiment had entered the final stage, and she also began to participate in the final draft of the thesis. After finishing her morning work early, she rested her head on her chin and looked at the white clouds outside the window. She thought to herself, what is he doing now? He's really good at making trouble. He actually went to act in a movie again. It's incredible that he has become a big celebrity in 2 months. I'm getting further and further away from him. There will definitely be a lot of female fans harassing him. This guy can't be secretly happy at the pictures of female fans every night, right? Achoo! Chen Guang sat on Pierce's MPV and sneezed violently. Who's cursing me? He rubbed his nose and thought about it. Then he finally remembered to open WeChat. 30 seconds later, he was dumbfounded. The Tepester family? The Witch of Science, Nicole Tepester. What the hell? F***CK, a family of Frankenstein geeks. Did it have to be so scary? Great-great-grandfather had been a lab assistant for that super terrifying Tesla. The family had the handwritten notes of Nikola Tesla, who invented alternating current and suspected to be the mastermind behind the Tunguska explosion. The entire family had been Frankenstein geeks for generations. Great-great-grandfather had died in an experimental accident while deciphering Tesla's notes. How tragic. Great-great-grandfather had been blown up again. How tragic. Great-great-grandmother had been blown up together. How inhumane. His parents had also been blown up. How tragic. Now, the entire family was only left with the last descendant. Nicole Tepester, who blew up the school at the age of 8, was now the famous Witch of Science in North America. She was actually the niece of that unlucky Marianne Smith. Marianne's surname was Tepester before she married Smith. You guys are poisonous. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Wrinkling his nose, Chen Guang seemed to have smelled an explosion in the air. This was too much. With such important news, he was in a dangerous situation. The crazy Witch of Science, Nicole, would definitely find a way to avenge her last relative, Marianne. After all, when she was very young, her parents had died in an experimental accident. Nicole, who was an orphan, was raised by her aunt, Marianne Smith. At the same time, this generous aunt also funded her to continue the research of this terrifying family. Putting himself in Nicosia's shoes, if he were in her shoes, he would definitely try his best to blow up the culprit into the sky. Alright, even though Hiroyuki Aoyama was the one who pushed Mrs. Smith down, I have to take the blame now. Now, I can't go abroad, especially not to America. But right now I'm sitting on the road in Detroit, okay? Should I just go home now? Chen Guang wanted to retreat. After all, this Tepester family was extraordinarily terrifying. They were too explosive. This whole family is a walking bomb in human form, okay? How could they live like this? Couldn't they just die of old age and illness in their beds? If you have something to say, then say it nicely. Don't drag me down with you. But it wasn't easy for him to make a trip to America. Such a good opportunity to show off with his Kirin arm was right in front of him. If he did it well, he would have a huge harvest of faith points. He really couldn't bear to give it up just like that. This was as awkward as when a buddy with diarrhea rushed into the toilet with great difficulty, only to find out that it was a women's toilet. Did he want to pull up his pants and leave? But the arrow was already on the bowstring, and he had no choice but to shoot it. Even if he found out that it was a women's toilet, he had to shoot it out. Besides, since he was already here, she couldn't possibly find him in just 2 or 3 days, right? Also, look at this photo of Nicosia Teppert. She's clearly a delicate girl with big wavy blonde hair, blue eyes, and big wavy hair. This old man has full power against beautiful girls. As long as she dares to cause trouble, she'll be charmed to death in minutes. She looked so cute, so she definitely wouldn't be too cruel. Her Frankenstein genes should have pretty much degenerated, right? Alright, I'm just spouting nonsense. I'm still a little panicked, but I can't just turn around and run away after coming here for nothing, right? Probably, nothing will happen, right? Anyway, I just have to be more vigilant. I'm not a soft persimmon that can be pinched flat by anyone. Just as he hung up on Lu Xiaoyang's WeChat, Chen Guang's phone rang again. Wu Tong had sent another message. After reading Wu Tong's message, he only had one thought in his mind. Life is already so difficult, so why do you still have to torture me like this? Did I accidentally knock the bell of destiny when I was sleeping one day? I'm just taking a stroll abroad and planning to show off to my heart's content. Why are there so many problems? Wu Tong's message was like this. I couldn't get through to you on the phone just now, so I could only tell you through WeChat. We just had an intense exchange of fire with terrorists in Beijing. They're from the shattered world. According to reliable information, Xue Lin's revenge operation has already caused heavy damage to the shattered world. They've decided to take revenge. Furthermore, the matter of you and I dealing with Sergio should have been leaked. For the time being, their eyes are on me, but you know that I don't have the ability to do so. They should be able to find some clues. Therefore, I'm worried that they'll suspect you sooner or later, and you might be exposed. During this period of time, you must be well behaved and don't go abroad. Chen Guang silently put down his phone and looked at the blue sky and white clouds of Detroit outside the car window. He also looked at the peaceful abandoned factory buildings. There were wolves in front and tigers behind. This time, he had fallen into a fire pit. I'm really King Hell's three-headed flame golden-armored howling celestial hound. Chapter 691. Mr. Chen, what's wrong? Are you sleepy? It's fine. How about you take a nap at the club? You can sleep for about half an hour, but no more than that. Otherwise, you won't be able to sleep at night. Don't oversleep. I'll get someone to wake you up. When Pierce saw Chen Guang's unsightly expression, he initially thought that he was too passionate and forced Chen Guang to train with him. It's fine, Mr. Pierce. I'm not blaming you. I'm really thankful for your hospitality and invitation. It's just that I ran into some trouble. Chen Guang forced a smile and explained. Since he knew that he was in danger, he felt like he was sitting on pins and needles if he continued to sit in Pierce's car. There was no doubt that Pierce was a good person. If he continued to stay with them, he would become a bigger target. On the other hand, he would bring them into huge trouble and might die at any time. After thinking about it, Chen Guang felt that he had to separate from Pierce and the others. This was America, after all. It wasn't his territory. The disadvantages of being in a foreign land were obvious. The influence of China's military here was far less than in China. They wouldn't be able to provide him with any substantial help. He was in a dangerous situation now. He couldn't bet on the fact that the other party wouldn't find him so quickly. The other party was the world's top assassin organization and the Witch of Science. What if they were really that crazy? Pierce didn't know how terrifying the trouble Chen Guang was talking about was. He said confidently, "It's fine, Mr. Chen. I'm not bragging, but there's no trouble in America that I, Pierce, can't deal with." Seeing how reckless he was, Chen Guang didn't know whether he should be touched or speechless. No. Mr. Pierce, I can't drag you into my trouble. Stop the car by the side of the road. I have to get out. If everything goes well, I'll appear at the wrestling competition tomorrow. We'll contact each other then. Now that he was in a dangerous situation, if Chen Guang continued to participate in the wrestling competition, he would be courting death. Although it was a great pity, since things had already come to this, he might as well give up for the time being. Once he survived this ordeal, he would pay out of his own pocket and increase the prize money for the participants. Then, he would organize a worldwide arm wrestling competition. There was no need to risk his life. Why is that? Pierce was anxious. They would arrive at his club in 10 minutes. He really didn't want to let them go just like that. No reason, Mr. Pierce. Time is of the essence. Stop the car. I'm in more trouble than you know, but I can't tell you. Chen Guang's expression became more and more serious. Pierce's brows furrowed even tighter. The more Chen Guang behaved like this, the more he felt that he might miss this rare genius. No, you may not know my status as a well-known boxing coach in North America. I have a lot of celebrity friends, politicians, entrepreneurs, and even senior agents of the CIA. No matter what it is, I can help you. You are my friend and a genius that I have high hopes for. I won't let you go so easily, really. Mr. Pierce, if you don't stop the driver, I'm going to jump out of the car. Foreman, drive a little faster. Make it 160. Chen Guang was confused by this stubborn brother. Big brother, I'm not joking with you. Can you be more serious? We're in a really bad situation. Don't make trouble. Facing the stubborn Pierce was a headache for him. While the two of them were arguing, in a parking lot next to a fork in the road about 5 minutes away, there were 4 commercial vehicles and a container truck with a colorful, postmodern punk style, parked on both sides of the road. Chen Guang's worries were not wrong. The World Breaker and Nicoise Teppert's movements were faster than he had imagined. In fact, as early as when he got on the plane from Yanjing to Detroit, the two parties already knew his itinerary from the airline's database. Through different means, they found out that he got on the commercial car of the famous professional boxing coach Pierce after getting off the plane. Both parties had the same target, and their actions were the same, which was to ambush him on the road from the airport to the Pierce Club. The traffic at this intersection was complicated and the road was narrow. Pierce's car would make a right turn here, and the road would suddenly narrow, so he would definitely slow down here. He would hide the car in the roadside parking lot, but it was close to the road. When the time came, he would definitely be able to catch Chen Guang off guard. Nicoise lay flat in the driver's seat of the container truck, her fingers tapping on the keyboard beside her in boredom. The famous sorceress of science looked no different from an ordinary girl. Although she was beautiful, she did not care about her appearance. She was wearing a sloppy, long, loose t-shirt and a pair of pajama pants. She didn't even wear shoes or a bra. She was sleepy and had dark circles under her eyes. Ever since she learned of her aunt's death, she had not slept well for a single minute. In one day, she drove this heavy truck across a distance of 1,500 kilometers, just to rush to Detroit to ambush Chen Guang. There was no seat in the front passenger seat, but a huge operating platform covered with all kinds of buttons. She called this car Nicoise's Mobile Fortress. This car represented her greatest achievement as a sorceress of science. The entire truck contained at least dozens of powerful weapons and dozens of sophisticated modern information equipment, all of which were the results of her research and development. In addition, this mobile fortress, which was a combination of semi-artificial intelligence, could be completely controlled by her alone. The weapons on the car were very characteristic of the Tempest family. They were powerful, but very unstable. They were far more informational than the weapons used by ordinary armies. They mainly used explosions, such as honeycomb bombs, self-exploding bees, ant bombs, electronic heat-sensing grasshoppers, and so on. The biggest characteristic of this family was that their desire to create and destroy was equally strong, but they were extremely dissatisfied with mature and stable things. They were eager to pursue excitement, and could even be said to be crazy about the unstable surprise. 300, 299, 298, she was counting down the time it would take for Pierce's business car to pass. As the sorceress of science of the Tempest family, she did not want to waste a single second of her time. Waiting for someone like this, even if it was only for a few minutes, was a great pain. Wasting time was equivalent to slow suicide for her. Boring, really too boring. She decided to try to hack into the electronic devices near her car, such as the mobile phones of the people sitting in the business cars parked on the other side. Using their microphones, she could eavesdrop on what they were talking about. Her fingers typed randomly on the keyboard. About 30 seconds later, she quietly cracked the seemingly solid security defense system of the mobile phones. The conversation that came from the microphones made her eyes narrow. Old 5, according to the boss, we must ensure that Chen Guang is alive. Is that right? That's right. In one of the 4 business cars, World 5 and World 6 were talking in a low voice. Nicole's eyes suddenly lit up. No wonder this guy dared to come to the United States so quickly after killing my aunt. What a cunning bastard. He must have known that I would take revenge and thought that it was better to take the initiative than to defend passively. So, this is a trap he prepared for me. The people in those cars are helpers that he hired with a lot of money. You've really underestimated me, Nicosia. I'll make you pay. I will take the initiative to gain the upper hand. Nicole's fingers slowly placed on the keyboard, and her eyes flashed fiercely. What a beautiful misunderstanding. Chapter 692. Hold on, Brother 6. We're being monitored. As World 5 and World 6 were chatting in the MPV, the member of the Broken World who was in charge of intelligence suddenly exclaimed. Although Nicosia was a genius, the Broken World was also a veteran assassin organization. Their intelligence department was not to be trifled with. Very soon, they discovered that an external signal was invading their electronic equipment through radio frequency. They quickly alerted them and responded quickly, attempting to follow the enemy's signal to counterattack. Interesting. He's an expert. Although I, Nicosia, am not interested in being a hacker and only want to play with you guys, I like the feeling of being challenged. On the other side, Nicosia sensed the opponent's counterattack and became even more spirited. However, she didn't get up. Instead, she continued to type furiously on the keyboard with one hand. She looked like a naughty child who was randomly patting the keyboard, but in fact, she was writing and transmitting commands in an instant. The enemy is so powerful. My counterattack has been discovered. It's coming. The intelligence officer's face turned pale. The short confrontation did not even last 10 seconds, and he was defeated cleanly. The enemy had used an extremely short amount of time to decipher their defense system. It was simply terrifying. World 5 and World 6 were equally shocked. According to the intelligence, Chen Guang was just an ordinary student who had some relations with China's higher-ups. It was impossible for him to have any experts around him. Their plan was very simple. Chen Guang had a close relationship with the Beijing District Bureau Chief, Wu Tong. That woman was the key person who had caused the death of World 9. At the same time, that woman's father was an extremely high-ranking figure in China's political scene. Other than that, this man seemed to be a famous person and had a close relationship with a suspected descendant of China's higher-ups. Their previous revenge operation in China had already failed. That country had used their terrifying military to make the entire country impregnable. They were lax on the outside but tense on the inside. On the surface, it seemed like ordinary murder cases were very difficult to solve. However, once someone entered their sights and became their target, even the most outstanding special agent assassin would find it hard to move an inch in that country. Even an assassin organization like the Broken World, which had a sacrificial spirit, was the same. Although they were not afraid of death, they did not wish for their important members to be sacrificed for nothing. However, they could not do nothing. The madman who had been ambushing members of the Broken World all over the world was too hateful. They had to think of a way to stop him. Unfortunately, their previous attempts to kill or capture the madman had all failed. Instead, they had paid a heavy price for it. That was why they were trying their best to force the madman to retreat. They had originally planned to create some trouble in Yanjing to intimidate those in power in Huaxia. However, They were really unlucky to run into the old masters who were planning to start a war with the internal force martial artists. The entire Yanjing city seemed peaceful, but in fact, it was full of danger. Well, the inescapable net that he had prepared for the internal force martial artists to fight to the death had been tested on the people of the World Breaker. In the end, the broken world's gaze fell on Qinguang, but he was also helpless. Capture this man alive, then use him to negotiate with the higher-ups of Huaxia, and then let them recall that madman. This was shattered world strategy. They had even sent out 2 captain-level experts to lead 2 squads to ambush Yi Shiwen. This was to ensure that nothing would go wrong. He never thought that he would be ambushed by an expert while he was camping. Who are they? Activate electronic interference. Block all communications in our vicinity. Sure, the 5th ordered decisively. After waiting for another 10 seconds, the intelligence agent wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Fortunately, the shield was fast enough. My underlying code was almost breached. The 2 captains, Sure the 5th and 6th, looked at each other. Where did this expert come from? Who knows? We have to be careful. Could it be that this person's identity is higher than what our intelligence indicated? Forget it. Don't worry about this. He will be here in 2 minutes. 6th, you keep an eye on him. When he appears, you shoot his tires first. I'll bring some people to capture him. Sure, the 5th held the car window with a solemn expression. The air was filled with the smell of danger. However, they were not particularly afraid. As the assassins of the broken world, which day did they not live on the edge of a knife? TSK, boring. You can't beat me, so you hide in your turtle shell. What a bunch of trash. Nicosia Tepster said disdainfully after she realized that her radio frequency stream was blocked by the opponent's strong electromagnetic interference. As a demoness who had bombed a school at the age of 8, she did not have the ideals and outlook of a normal person. It was God's mercy that she could live to this day. She did not carefully consider the relationship between the people in the MPV and Qinguang. She only remembered the words, I must ensure that Qinguang is alive. Therefore, they must be enemies. All right, it's time to send you to meet God. After making the decision, she muttered to herself. She sat up straight, got up, took 2 steps forward, and sat down in the operating compartment in the front passenger seat. She was getting serious. The dense sound of keyboard tapping rose and fell in the fortress-heavy truck. The frequency was even faster than when Qinguang played the piano. Strings of mysterious codes appeared on the screen in front of Nicosia. The blonde girl who looked lazy and sloppy just now suddenly became radiant without warning. It was as if she would only bloom with her true brilliance when she sat in front of her operating table. The halo on the screen shone on her face, and Nicosia's grin grew wider and wider. She gradually couldn't control herself and laughed wildly. Her face looked particularly ferocious in the dim light in the car, full of hysterical and seductive beauty. I'll blow you up, you bastards. I'll blow you up. Go to hell. Damn Huaxia people, you actually want to take the initiative to attack me, Nicosia, in your dreams. I'll send your helpers to heaven right away, and then you'll have to see Aunt Mariana soon. She was not afraid of alerting the enemy at all. The moment Qinguang's feet landed at Detroit Airport and left the airport instead of immediately turning around and flying back to Huaxia, Nicosia was certain that this man would not be able to go back. It could even be said that if these MPVs were really Qinguang's helpers, it would be more to her liking. Bastard, despair. These trash you found will soon go to heaven. Then you can run in despair. But you can't escape, because you've been targeted by Nicosia, you must die. This scientific sorceress kept nagging. This was her habit. Whenever she felt excited, she couldn't help nagging. About a minute or two later, above Nicosia's mobile fortress, the cover of the warehouse brazenly opened, and the launcher full of self-destructing electronic bees slowly rose, ready to go. Each self-destructing electronic bee was about the size of a fingernail. There were 4 miniature propellers on top, and a miniature high-explosive bomb hung below. Although these electronic bees were not big, their explosive power was not small, and they could be controlled by Nicosia's special radio frequency remote control to hit anywhere within a radius of 3 kilometers. At the same time, a slide track extended from the bottom of the warehouse of the heavy fortress truck, and rows of miniature electronic grasshoppers filed down from the slide track. Her fingers shook on the launch button, and she hesitated for a moment. She thought that since the other party had a strong electromagnetic interference shielding equipment, they might also have some skills. In order to be foolproof, she decided to warm up the new guy that she had just made last week. That's right, the directional electromagnetic railgun inherited from Tesla. Its power was amazing, and it was easy to use. In a sense, it was even more advanced than Tesla's original version. Nicosia's version of the electromagnetic railgun was smaller, its power was more concentrated, and it was easier to control. In the new situation of modern warfare, it was countless times more useful than Tesla's original version, which required the construction of a tower. The only drawback was that ever since this thing was developed, it had not been tested on the heavy fortress truck even once. But Nicosia Tempest was not worried about anything going wrong. She had at least carried out more than 10,000 flawless verification calculations on the railgun, completed at least thousands of experimental preheating, and fixed test firing dozens of times. After moving it to the heavy fortress truck, because it was really troublesome to store energy, and she had been busy with other things recently, she had forgotten to test it for a while. But there definitely won't be any problems. I'm the genius Nicosia. While looking at the 3D full environment model that had finally been built on the electronic screen, Nicosia finally pressed the launch button. Accompanied by a mechanical rustling sound from the top and bottom of the heavy fortress truck at the same time, the dense light spots on the screen suddenly moved. At this time, the image on Nicosia's screen looked a bit like a very popular game in the past. That's right, it was StarCraft. 200 Wyvern Venom burst, ahead of the opponent by 80 people. How could they lose? Team A would be blown away. Mr. Pierce, I really have to get out of the car. Tell Mr. Foreman to slow down, or I'll really get angry. I know you mean well, but now is not the time to joke. In the car, Chen Guang was still putting up a final struggle. As an experienced Chinese, he still couldn't stand Brother Black's straightforwardness. To put it nicely, they were straightforward, but to put it bluntly, they were stubborn. He seemed to believe that as soon as he arrived at his club, he would be fascinated by boxing as fast as he expected. Is there something wrong with his brain? Besides, today's situation is special. It's really not the right time. Let's wait until I'm safe and sound, then we can have a good chat in the future. Not now. Coach Pierce was quite helpless. Chinese people were really stubborn. He also knew that he was a little out of control. When he was in China, he still knew how to advance and retreat. Suddenly, he came to Detroit with him. At the thought of bringing him to his club and becoming his guide and agent on the boxing stage, Pierce was a little too excited. Mr. Chen, I'm really sorry if I've caused you trouble. How about this, where do you want to go? I'll ask Foreman to take you to the destination first, okay? Pierce said tentatively. He wanted to do something to continue strengthening his relationship with Chen Guang. Chen Guang was about to shake his head and refuse him directly. Suddenly, there was a fierce fire about 500 or 600 meters in front of them. A loud noise followed, accompanied by a violent vibration. Even the thick MPV obviously trembled. Foreman, who was driving, desperately gripped the steering wheel and finally managed to slowly stop the car by the side of the road. The other cars in front and behind were in similar situations, all parked crookedly on the side. A group of people got out of the MPV and looked ahead. The fire there quickly rose into the sky, burning higher and higher. It seemed to dye the sky orange in broad daylight. The whistling sound brought by the explosion and flames drifted from afar. The nearby vehicles parked on the side of the road made a harsh siren because of the violent vibration. In the small courtyard by the road, large dogs were roaring angrily. Many people rushed out of their homes in panic and stood in the courtyard, staring at the place where the explosion occurred in the distance. For a time, the entire road on both sides became chaotic because of the violent and sudden explosion, as if the end of the world had come. Chen Guang's eyes widened. He had long heard that the ground cooked with oil often caused trouble. Seeing it today, it really lived up to its reputation. I just came out of the airport and my feet haven't even touched the ground yet, and I'm already given such a big surprise. The legendary terrorist attack. Delicious chicken. Who's so unlucky? It's the parking lot at the junction of Bellur Road and Bara Road. Paul's home is nearby. Oh my God. Pierce was more panicked than Chen Guang. It seemed that the place where the big explosion occurred was very close to his friend's home. He lifted his legs and wanted to rush forward, but several other young black men quickly stopped him. If there was a terrorist attack over there, he would die in vain if he rashly approached. As a new and hot foreign friend, Chen Guang had seen a lot of similar reports on news TV. He deeply thought that the people of the United States lived in dire straits for a long time, so they were not very compassionate, nor would they add insult to injury. They were just somewhat used to it. According to our country's official statistics, your country has to bomb thousands of times every year, okay? He silently took out a cup of water from his backpack. The tea that was brewed when he left the airport had been swaying all the way with the car, and it had formed a lot of bubbles. It was fine. He sucked the bubbles off the surface, and there was still a mouthful of fresh, rich, and fragrant hot tea. He gently took a sip of the hot tea and mourned for the hardships of the people of the United States. Then, Chen Guang was ready to leave. Don't mourn for others. You're not much better off yourself. What awaits me is the double crisis of the broken world and Nicosia Tepester. Mr. Pierce, there is an old Chinese saying that goes, heaven helps the worthy. Try calling your friend. Maybe he's not home. Pierce hugged his head in pain. No, Paul is not my friend. I hate him. Then why do you look so sad? My ex-wife secretly lent him $1 million, and he has only returned less than $80,000. What a sad story. Chen Guang silently took another sip of tea. There was too much information. Closing the cup, Chen Guang was ready to run. He did not know where to go, but at least he had to find a conspicuous place to hide. Then, he would find a way to contact his country. He needed support. Then, I'll leave first. At this moment, he suddenly felt that his ears could not hear anything. It was a little itchy. He scratched his ears, but it was still useless. There was still no sound. The noise from before had suddenly disappeared. The whole world suddenly became silent without any warning. Strange. What the hell? Chapter 693. Did I accidentally trigger the heavenly grail and enter the world in the cup? It can't be so fast, right? I just experienced the one-line world in the cup a few days ago. How could the heavenly grail be so diligent? What's going on? Chen Guang turned his head and looked around. On the fence of the small courtyard about 20 or 30 meters behind him, a huge golden retriever was opening and closing its mouth crazily. It was clearly roaring, but no sound could be heard. Pierce also looked at him with a pale face. His mouth opened and closed, but no one knew what he was saying. Chen Guang narrowed his eyes and looked at him. At this point, he could only rely on his lip reading. Well, he still couldn't understand. Pierce suddenly fell to the ground, and at the same time, his right hand fiercely pulled at his clothes. This time, Chen Guang finally understood what he was mouthing. He said, "Get down." 5 seconds later, the silent world once again regained its sound. It was simply deafening. There was no other noise. The long sound of the car alarms, the roar of the golden retriever, and the screams of people covering their heads, there was only the image and no sound. It was as if in an instant, the sky and the earth were occupied by the terrible buzzing sound, and there was no room for any other sound. Broken glass shards came toward them. The bulletproof glass on Pierce's MPV had been shattered by the resonance. In this regard, Chen Guang, who was lying on the ground with Pierce, only wanted to say one thing. America is so scary. I want to go home. Damn, what the hell exploded in front of us? Are you trying to turn the world upside down? Can I still live until the day when the broken world and the Tepester family come for me? It turned out that the most dangerous thing in this country wasn't the two enemies at all. One could just walk on the road and run into this kind of sh*t. That was the most terrifying thing. This was simply hell on earth. The second explosion was much more violent than the first one, but what was even more strange was that there was only a buzzing sound and no explosion sound. There was no fire in front of them, and even the raging fire that had been burning earlier had been extinguished. A minute or two earlier, Nikwa's tuppet had chosen Dragon Mount. The dense swarm of self-destructing electronic bees and electronic grasshoppers took the lead and pounced on the MPV where the 20 members of the shattered world were hiding. They were ferocious and sudden. If it was an ordinary person who was ambushed, he would have fallen for it without any suspense. However, the people in the broken world reacted quickly. Seeing that the situation was not right, they immediately started the car and tried to escape. Although they still couldn't escape from Nicosia's remote explosion, they quickly dispersed. As if the curse of a certain toxic healer had been proven, even though Nicosia had launched an ambush and released all the self-destructing electronic bees and grasshoppers in order to ensure the effectiveness of the ambush, the assassins of the world of Shatterer had relied on the sturdiness of the special vehicles and were not destroyed immediately. Seeing this, Nicole, who had already descended into madness, did not hesitate to press the launch button of the electromagnetic railgun. She planned to use her new toy to paint a life stronghold for these helpers of Qinguang. Like many of her family's elders, the first test of her railgun on the heavy truck ended in failure. The result was extremely tragic. An uncontrolled pulse explosion erupted from the core of the fortress heavy truck. Although there were no flames or explosions, the terrifying shockwave destroyed everything in the parking lot, including Nicosia's own fortress heavy truck and the world of Shatterer's 4 MPVs. It was the strange shockwave released by the pulse explosion that caused Qinguang and the others to temporarily lose their hearing. Qinguang, Pierce, and the others lay on the ground for a long time. When they finally regained their hearing, they stood up in shock. Regarding this sudden second explosion, Qinguang could only use one word to describe it: glass destroyer. It was truly a tragedy. It was unknown how many people were injured or killed, but there was no doubt that all the glass in front of him had been destroyed. Everything had shattered into pieces on the ground. He had no interest in seeing how tragic the explosion was. He tidied up the cup in his hand and said, "Mr. Pierce, that. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. If tomorrow's arm wrestling match can still be held, and I don't encounter any accidents, I'll see you tomorrow. If I don't come tomorrow, I'll definitely come to see you the next time you come to China, okay?" Pierce saw that he still wanted to run. Don't. Such a big thing happened. Sigh. Okay, I'll see you another day. Before he could finish, Qinguang had already run out of sight with his backpack. This bro is really fast, Pierce said helplessly. Qinguang also put on his escape mode. The crisis after mistakenly entering the tiger's den had not yet been resolved. It was a pity that he was unfamiliar with Detroit, and his oriental face was particularly eye-catching. He had things hanging on him, and he was unwilling to find Sun Xiaoshuan. He could only wander around the slightly deserted former Motor City by himself. He did not even dare to use his phone to make a call. Instead, he simply turned it off and wandered around for half an hour. He found a park in the middle of the street and sat down on a bench wearily and irritably. Once again, he hated the fact that he was not strong enough. If he had the strength of Wenwen today, not to mention Wenwen, as long as he had the strength of Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan, there would be no need for him to flee in panic under such circumstances. I don't care if you're the Tepest family or the Shatterer. If you dare to provoke me, I'll shatter you in minutes. Sigh, my cup isn't strong enough. Qin Guang picked up the cup and drank some water. However, he did not notice that there was an extremely fine drop of red blood on the tip of his right index finger that was holding the cup. At this time, he still did not know that Nicosie Tempest was completely dead. World 5 and World 6 of the Shatterer did not end well either. Not even their bones were left. The blood stained on his cup cover was a drop of Nicosie Tempest's blood that was stuck to the fragment and brought over. Accompanied by a piece of unpleasant music, the announcer's voice came from the loudspeaker in the middle of the street park. Welcome to Detroit News Radio. We're now broadcasting a special piece of news. Half an hour ago, there was a violent explosion in the parking lot at the junction of Bellure Road and Barra Road. Suddenly, the sound of a news broadcast came from the loudspeaker behind his chair. Qin Guang's ears immediately perked up. According to the police investigation, the explosion caused a total of 21 deaths and 43 injuries. Qin Guang frowned slightly. So many people died? Human lives were really cheap. One of them is the well-known Frankenstein, Nicosie Tempest, and the other 20 are members of a terrorist organization of unknown origin. They are suspected to be from the internationally notorious killer organization, the Shatterer. Sitting in the chair, Qin Guang was dumbfounded. He dug his ears, thinking he had heard wrong. After waiting for another 10 minutes, he bit the bullet and turned on his phone to call China. He asked Jiang Yuanchao to mobilize the intelligence department to inquire about the news. Qin Guang finally confirmed this fact. Although he did not know what happened, the result was that his two rivals inexplicably collided with each other. The people of the Shatterer and Nicosie Tempest perished together. There was no doubt that this was great news for him. Qin Guang could not help but be smug. The old man was really the chosen one favored by fate. Yes, that's right. Anyone who dared to be an enemy of the old man would be cursed and rejected by the god of fate. In such a dangerous situation, I was saved just by lying down. What did I do? I didn't do anything. All I did was draw circles in my heart and curse them from time to time. Speaking of which, this was indeed the terrifying Tempest family. They practically had the ability to self-destruct. The fate of this family was not to die in bed. They had to blow themselves up. My great-grandfather blew up, my grandparents blew up, my parents blew up, and now you blew up too. What a terrifying Frankenstein family. Tragic, too tragic. Let me mourn for you for 3 seconds. As for the shattered world, according to the reliable information provided by the U.S. intelligence personnel, the highest-ranking assassins of that unfortunate organization in the U.S. were the two experts, World 5 and World 6. At the crime scene, they also found evidence that represented their identities. Therefore, there was no doubt that Qin Guang was safe. No matter how fast the people of the Shatterer reacted, they would not be able to send another top-level killer over in a short period of time. Other than that, they had suffered such a huge loss for no reason. Before they understood the situation, they might not have the guts to continue sending people to their deaths. He had a self-destructing level bodyguard by his side. Anyone who bumped into him would feel guilty. Refreshed, Qin Guang packed up his belongings and called Pierce. Mr. Pierce, are you there? Yes, that's right. I'm done with my business. I'm coming to your club now, huh? How could you call someone to pick me up? How could you do that? Oh, by the way, can you prepare a room for me when I arrive? I want to take a bath first. About 20 minutes later, Qin Guang happily got into Mr. Foreman's car. This time, he had changed into a Hummer with thick bulletproof glass. Pierce was also scared out of his wits. Pierce's boxing club was very large, covering an area of up to 10 acres. There were several villas, swimming pools, gyms, training rooms, and other facilities. After all, every top-level boxer was not short of money. When they received private training from Pierce, they would live in the villas provided by the club. Private training worth $300,000 a month was worth it. Pierce was very enthusiastic about Qin Guang. Since the villa was empty, he simply lent Xinguang the White House where Mayweather used to live. Mr. Chen, I'm so happy that you can come. What do you think? Are you interested in trying on the measuring machine now? Pierce couldn't wait. Xinguang, on the other hand, was thinking about making medicine and taking a bath. He rolled his eyes and lied. Mr. Pierce, there's a custom in my hometown. When I visit a friend's house, I must take a good bath to show my respect to the host, so, okay, no problem. Pierce quickly agreed. I respect the customs of the Huaxia people. By the way, we have a small party in the backyard with many beautiful models. After all, we are all very sleepy now. It's too difficult to stay up until night. We need to refresh ourselves. Hee, you know. Money and beautiful women were the eternal pursuits of men in the boxing ring. However, Xinguang decided to maintain the traditional image of the Huaxia people until the last moment. Thank you for your kindness. I'll come back later. I don't need it now. Finally, he drove them away. Xinguang found a ceramic pot in the villa and began to boil medicine by himself. He was used to Xian Qin and Wu Miaowan doing these things for him. It was very difficult to do it by himself. After working hard for more than half an hour, he finally lay comfortably in the bathtub. Then, he picked up the cup again. His eyes gradually became serious. Come on, the strongest pectoral muscles in history. Chapter 694. After a brief space-time transition, he once again appeared in the world in the cup. This time, he was soaking in the bathtub in his underwear. When he entered the world in the cup, there were no scenes that were inappropriate for children. Lioli still seemed to be sitting cross-legged in the center of Cloud City. She probably hadn't played with her money machine for a few days. He didn't know what she was doing. Seeing that Xinguang had arrived, Lioli didn't get up to greet him. She only opened her eyes and said weakly, "Oh, you're here? Help yourself. I'm very busy today and don't have time to chat with you." Xinguang rolled his eyes. Why do you look like you don't want to see me? As an old lady, you're simply incompetent, okay? Well, anyway, Lioli has always been like this. I'm used to it. Help yourself, it's not a big deal. In fact, he didn't know that ever since a wisp of his soul was absorbed by the heavenly Holy Grail, no matter what he wanted to practice, Lioli would miserably be dragged into it as a prop. No one would have a good expression if they encountered such a thing. Lu Minghua also seemed to be a little absent-minded. She was bored to death as she swayed there. No one knew what she was thinking. When Xinguang got closer, he realized that the flower was actually wrapping an iPad on one of its leaves. She was happily watching a movie. In a blink of an eye, it seemed to be a braid movie. A flower watching a braid movie? City people really know how to play. By the way, what do you want to practice this time? You only have 660,000 faith points now, right? Beggar version? Lu Minghua seemed to have just finished watching an episode. She put away the iPad, turned around, and said to Xinguang with a smile. Seeing Lu Minghua, who was dozens of feet tall, speaking in a little girl's voice in front of him, Xinguang felt quite strange. I want to train my pectoral muscles. Yes, that's right. I'll also train the beggar version. I'm especially motivated today. What? Say it louder, I didn't hear you clearly. Lu Minghua's interest was suddenly raised. Pectoral muscles. Pectoral muscles. Did you hear me clearly? Oh. Oh, not bad. Lu Minghua replied meaningfully, then said, Sister Lioli, did you hear that? Your Xinguang wants to train his pectoral muscles. Xinguang was baffled by her weird expression. What's going on? Isn't it just training your chest muscles? Is there a need for you to be so surprised? Although pectoral muscles were a little embarrassing, weren't they still muscles? Seriously, he was making a fuss over nothing. Luli, who was originally meditating like a solemn old monk, almost fell to the ground when she heard this. Previously, when Chen Guang was training the soles of his feet, she turned into a foot bathtub. When he was training his ankles and Achilles tendons, she turned into a water shower. When he was training his wind god kick, she turned into a plastic track. Now, he was going to train his pecs, and it was the beggar version. What did he need to transform into? Just thinking about it made her feel that it was too beautiful to look straight at. Therefore, Lu Li gave up. She stood up and appeared in front of Chen Guang in a flash. Can you think of a more reliable place? Why do you have to train your pectoral muscles? Can't you change to another one? Chen Guang shrugged. It's rare for me to be so motivated. It's fine if you don't encourage me, but I won't change. I won't change even if you beat me to death. I have a whole set of plans that depend on these two pectoral muscles to survive. Besides, if you want me to change, you have to give me a reliable reason, okay? This Empress. Lu Li didn't say anything in the end. She really couldn't say it. If this guy knew that she had actually transformed into a foot bathtub, wouldn't he laugh to death? Lu Minghua, who was at the side, looked at Lu Li's deflated look with a smile. He was very happy. When he thought that Lu Li would have to train his pectoral muscles in the beggar version later, he was even happier. Alright, Lord Lu Li, time is running out. Send me on my way now. Wear my peerless pectoral muscles and I will definitely benefit mankind. I will be a good person who is helpful to society and mankind. As Chen Guang spoke, he deliberately shook his pectoral muscles in front of Lu Li. He was very cocky. For some reason, the more he saw her blushing and shy look, the more he couldn't resist the urge to tease her. He knew that danger lurked everywhere, but he couldn't control his urge to court death. Teasing the Empress was addictive. Lu Li was annoyed by his mischievous look, but she couldn't do anything about it. Could it be that I really can only train his pectoral muscles? I won't become two hands and keep massaging his body, will I? Isn't this a little too much? I'm a dignified Empress. Falling into this guy's hands is really humiliating. How sad. At this moment, Lu Minghua's voice sounded in her ears. Sister Lu Li, I have an idea. Didn't you send a girl in just now? Huh? There's such a thing? Lu Li was stunned at first. Then, she hurriedly communicated with the divine soul that had fused with the heavenly Holy Grail. Indeed, she found an extra soul in the Grail. Interesting. This soul is very interesting. It's even more interesting than the few souls that the heavenly Holy Grail had accidentally absorbed. A smile gradually appeared on Lu Li's face. In the past, she really couldn't do anything about these souls that had been accidentally absorbed. She could only let them wander around at the mercy of the Holy Grail. For example, Ling Qin had been sent to the realm of the transient sea. There was another divine soul that was still wandering around. Otherwise, it would still be suppressed in the Holy Grail as the purest energy. But things were different now. Now that Lu Minghua's body had partially fused with the heavenly Holy Grail, and a wisp of Lu Li's divine soul had also fused with the heavenly Holy Grail, she could do something about this special soul that had come in. Lu Li's eyes gradually lit up. Let's go back to before the second pulse explosion in the afternoon. When she pressed the launch button and heard the strange sound coming from the middle of the heavy fortress truck, Nicosia knew that she was dead meat. But she didn't expect that she would die so easily. But this seemed to be the fate of her entire family. Just like her parents, she was going to die because of the results of her own research. This was how it should be. But it was a pity that she couldn't leave behind more results before she died. Her biggest regret was that she was only 16 years old and couldn't even leave behind a descendant for the Tempest family. But she didn't feel that she had done anything wrong. In any case, her parents were also intoxicated with their Frankenstein life. They didn't care that they would die easily and leave a child like her alone in the world. This was fate, and it had been engraved in the genes of the Tempest family. Oh, by the way, there's also a great regret. I couldn't avenge Aunt Mariana. That Huaxia man named Chen Guang is still alive. How hateful. She was indeed the last descendant of the Frankenstein family. From the time the electromagnetic railgun malfunctioned to the time the terrifying pulse vibration blasted her into pieces, only 1 or 2 seconds had passed. She actually thought of so many things, and then her body was torn apart inch by inch. Everything happened so fast that she didn't even have time to feel pain. Her consciousness blurred for a moment. She thought to herself, my precious thoughts dissipated just like that? I'm a treasure of mankind, sigh. But her consciousness didn't completely disappear as she imagined. After an unknown amount of time, perhaps as long as a century, she slowly opened her eyes. Where is this? What am I doing here? Why am I not dead yet? At this moment, a gorgeous halo appeared in front of her, and an oriental woman so beautiful that she didn't look like a woman from the mortal world slowly appeared. Her whole body was shrouded in clouds, and only her face could be seen clearly, but it was filled with an extremely holy and noble aura. Am I in heaven? Is this an angel? So beautiful. Nicosia Tempest, do you want to understand the meaning of living? Lioli smiled faintly and said softly. The divine power that belonged to her was mixed in her voice, making her voice seem ethereal and distant, extremely charming, with the power to bewitch people and shake their will. It was unstoppable. The divine emperor's voice slowly pounced toward Nicosia, and Lioli planned to take this special soul. What? Nicosia Tempest's face was blank. Lioli's face stiffened. Damn, this girl doesn't understand Chinese. She had no choice but to change to English and start again. Nicosia, do you want to understand the meaning of living? All right, the second time she came, she spoke much faster, but it didn't matter. The divine power contained in the divine emperor's voice could also bewitch Nicosia Tempest's will. Not really. Nicosia seriously thought about Lioli's words and answered with her rigorous scientific work attitude. The veins on Lioli's forehead bulged, and she resisted the urge to smash this girl's soul with a slap. Why? Because I'm already dead, why would I still think about the meaning of living? Nicosia especially couldn't understand this angel's thinking, and felt that what she said was too strange. All right, you win. Lioli decided not to play tricks, otherwise she was really afraid that she wouldn't be able to control her emotions, and it was better to directly take action later. Lioli? Why are you in a daze? Chen Guang called out to Lioli for a long time, but there was no response, so he came over and urged, quickly send me on my way. I have to train my chest muscles. Lioli opened her narrowed eyes, don't worry, I'll be right there. Then, her mind once again sank into the wisp of soul that had fused with the heavenly Holy Grail, and she slowly opened her palm to grab Nicosia Tempest's soul. You! Who the hell are you? What are you doing? Nicosia looked at the palm that was getting closer and closer, and screamed in panic, because she discovered a particularly strange thing. Originally, the angel in front of her seemed to be about the same size as her, but when she began to stretch out her hand, her 5 fingers became as tall as her whole body. Was it because her hands were getting bigger? No, did I become smaller? I'll know just by looking at my hand. Strange, where are my hands? Oh, I've become a ball. Oh my God. I've become a ball. As expected of Nicosia, even when encountering such a strange thing, she could still analyze the situation in her mind so quickly. But it was of no use, she was still pinched in Lioli's hand, and then she was ruthlessly thrown out like a baseball. At the same time, Chen Guang, who was in Cloud City, was also sucked into the world in the cup with a whoosh. Oh, this familiar armor, like the touch of the skin, 100% fit, super perfect ergonomics, for every fitness user to provide the perfect experience. Nicosia Tempest slowly opened her eyes. No, she no longer had eyes. Chen Guang. She had just memorized this face not long ago, and it still left a deep impression on her. This must be the angel's gift. Even though I'm already dead, he gave me another chance to start over. The angel is helping me to avenge Aunt Mariana. Only by killing him can I be free and go to heaven. Nicole thought to herself, this must be the angel's gift. So, let me strangle you to death. Nicosia slowly stretched out her hands, and then ruthlessly pinched Chen Guang's pectoralis major. Oh no, my hands are completely out of my control. No, this isn't my hands, then what are they? Wait, what am I now? What kind of disgusting things are these disobedient mechanical arms of mine doing again? Didn't I want to kill him? But why am I grabbing his chest? No, this can't even be considered a grab, but a massage? She was confused. What the hell have I become? What kind of disgusting setting is this? Oh my God. No. So shameful. So disgusting. No. Let me go. Why is this happening? Nicosia began to scream crazily in her heart, but it was meaningless. She couldn't control her hands at all. Chen Guang didn't know that there was someone in his world in the cup, and it was the witch of explosive science that he was so afraid of before. He couldn't hear Nicosia's screams, and his whole body was immersed in the horse slaughter chicken. The effect of this massage was really fierce. The strength was super strong, the touch was unique, and the vibration was fierce. The frequency of the vibration was really fierce, just like Professor Yang's electric shock. I can't stop shaking at all. To be honest, it's starting to hurt a little. Damn, it really hurts. I can't. Can we pause? Well, with the nature of the world in the cup, it definitely won't work. You're getting more and more energetic, more and more fierce. Beat me to death if you have the ability. Fine, you don't have the ability. Chen Guang didn't know what the principles of this pair of strange little hands from the world in the cup were. It was actually able to completely control the vibration on the two pectoral muscles, and didn't affect other parts of his body at all. But the heavenly Holy Grail had always been like this. There was no scientific reasoning behind it, it just beat and shook to death. Rip. Pain. My pectoral muscles were torn. Chen Guang's mouth twitched, and he was in so much pain that he broke out in cold sweat. He knew that the beggar's version of the world in the cup would not be so comfortable, but he couldn't struggle even if he wanted to. He was trapped in the armor, and couldn't retract his arms and legs at all. He could only barely move his butt. But his injuries didn't last long. In the blink of an eye, he was instantly healed by the divine power that the heavenly Holy Grail forcibly poured into him. The next second, he was torn apart again with a rip. He finally understood the principle of the beggar's version of the world in the cup strengthening training. It kept tearing him apart, and then recovering. After exceeding the limit, the injuries caused would be quickly healed, and in the process of healing, it would be further strengthened. This move required very little space, and the consumption of divine power wasn't too great. It was just that it was extremely painful. If he had more faith points, he could choose a bigger space, and at least he could get a normal fitness equipment. The root of the problem was that he was poor. What he lacked was not money, but faith points. For more faith points, for the sake of showing off at the World Arm Wrestling competition tomorrow, the old man had to grit his teeth and endure. Outside in the Cloud City, Lioli clapped her hands in satisfaction. This little girl's soul is really useful. In the future, we can stuff her in for such trivial things. It will save me the trouble of having to go through this personally. That's right, clever Sister Lioli. Lu Minghua expressed her agreement. With the cooperation of one person and one flower, the two of them could be considered to have successfully interfered with the operation of the heavenly Holy Grail once. They forcefully stuffed Nicosia Teepester's fresh and hot soul into Chen Guang's beggar's version of the world in the cup. It was indeed useful. Nicosia discovered one thing. Although she didn't know what was going on and felt extremely ashamed, it seemed that the feeling of torturing Chen Guang to death seemed pretty good. It seemed to be much better than killing him directly. Outside in the Cloud City, Lioli suddenly remembered something. By the way, Lu Minghua, what TV series were you watching just now? Lu Minghua thought for a while. I didn't watch TV series. I watched a movie called The Deer and the Cauldron. It's quite fun. Oh, I saw it before. There's a unique skill called 100 Shots Piercing Heart Dragon Claw. Lioli said. Lu Minghua shook the flower bud. No, it's 100 Shots Piercing Heart Dragon Claw. Oh. Lioli's voice dragged out, as if she understood everything. Then, she gave Lu Minghua a thumbs up. Well done. Chapter 695. Although he knew that the training process of the beggar's version of the world of Pectoralis Major would be very miserable, Lord Guang was still tortured to death when he experienced it. He reminded himself once again that he would never consider the beggar's version of the world of cups next time. No matter how urgent he was, he would not open a new dungeon unless he had saved up 2 million to enjoy the deluxe version. Alright, this self-reminder was actually useless. His greatest characteristic was that he would go forward despite knowing that there was a tiger in the mountain. Whenever it was time to make a choice, he would forget the pain once the scar healed, only to regret it when it came to the end. As time passed, the mechanical arm driven by the mechanical core that Nicosia Ticebester had transformed into further upgraded the dragon claw. Take my 30,000 destructive hammer. Nicosia roared wildly in excitement. She came up with a lot of Marvel-esque names for her moves, making this boring thing for ordinary people interesting. Fatal Combo Smash Boulders. Explosive Shock Wave. Thunder God's Demonic Claw. Nicosia herself found it unbelievable. She had inexplicably turned into a machine and was tormenting this Huaxia man named Chen Guang. After experiencing the initial panic and confusion, she slowly accepted this cruel and strange reality. No matter what, it did not matter whether she still had a body or not. At least her consciousness still existed, which meant that she was really still alive in a sense. This was a good thing, wasn't it? For a person who had died under her own electromagnetic railgun and whose body had been completely shattered into pieces, this was probably the simplest happiness. She began to understand the meaning of the existence that might not be an angel but might be a goddess's words. It was good to be alive. But why was that? What was the principle behind it? Even with her witch of science brain, she could not figure out the reason. This world is really amazing. If I hadn't encountered this after I died, I'm afraid I would never have had the chance to witness such an incredible thing. Teacher Tesla's notes were right. The more you know, the more you feel that this universe is worthy of awe. If I can survive, I really want to study it properly. Her habit of being a Frankenstein came out again. Even in death, she would not rest. It was almost carved into her soul. At this time, Nicole still did not know that in the long life ahead of her, her uncontrollable desire to seek truth would cause her to face a terrifying amount of work. Of course, this might not be torture or pain for her. On the contrary, it might be the luckiest thing in her life. After all, she no longer had to worry about blowing herself up. Finally, Chen Guang made it through. Just like many of the custom-made special training sessions in the past, the process was unbearable to recall, but the final result was quite perfect. The heavenly Holy Grail would never compromise. On the surface, the shape of his chest muscles did not change at all. They did not become plump because he became stronger. They were still the standard of a normal man. However, when Chen Guang tried to mix his arms together and exerted his strength, it was indeed much smoother than when he only had the Qilin arm. He even felt that his arm strength seemed to have improved. The muscles of the human body should be a complete whole, so there would be a chain effect. However, there was a side effect. His chest muscles were shaking uncontrollably. He was like an electric grasshopper, so much so that he could not talk to Lioli nicely. Can you not shake at me like this? I feel like you are teasing me. Looking at the two light pectoral muscles that were shaking so hard that they were about to turn into mist, Lioli said speechlessly. Chen Guang spread his hands. Sorry, I can't control it at all. Is that so? Then quickly disappear from my sight. Thank you. Lioli raised her leg and aimed the tip of her foot straight at Chen Guang's chest, wanting to kick him away. Chen Guang only did one thing to make her instantly calm down. It turned out that when he came in addition to wearing his underwear, he also hid a high-intensity, anti-fog outdoor flashlight that he found in Pierce's villa. Taking advantage of the moment she raised her leg, Chen Guang took out the flashlight from his crotch, turned on the light with a whoosh, and shone it between Liuli's legs. The capitalist flashlight was indeed powerful. The effect of breaking through the fog was just right. As soon as the strong light shone out, the fog that was coiled around Liuli's waist to cover her body quickly began to fade to the naked eye. The beautiful scenery that was originally covered in white began to become fainter and fainter. Focusing on anti-fog for 30 years, also known as the nemesis of mosaics, it was very useful. Wow! The beauty of the world is indescribable. Chen Guang's eyes were also shining, and he was momentarily stunned. That beautiful valley in the mountains. Liuli suddenly retracted her leg, and her face and ears turned red. Who would have thought that this guy would be so shameless to actually hide such a trick in his crotch? She had always felt that this guy's crotch was bulging abnormally. She had miscalculated. Changing her leg to a fist, Liuli continued to pounce forward. She could not see the gap between her legs, but Chen Guang immediately aimed the flashlight at her chest, and the fog on her chest began to fade again. Bang! It was still that familiar smell. As he floated in the air, Chen Guang only had one sentence in his heart. My life has been worth it. When he opened his eyes again, he appeared in the bathtub again. The violent trembling of his pectoral muscles did not stop, and the water in his chest seemed to be boiling. However, it seemed that the speed of drug absorption had become faster. In less than 10 minutes, the water in the bathtub had all faded, and the drug had all entered his pectoral muscles. He felt warm and had endless strength. He stretched himself. Unexpectedly, the special training in the world in the cup actually had the effect of adjusting his biological clock. At this time, he did not feel tired at all after flying more than half of the world. He was refreshed and full of energy. Well, I have nothing to do anyway. Brother Pierce is so enthusiastic, and it's not appropriate for me to always give him the cold shoulder. I've lived in his villa for nothing these past 2 days. It's not a big deal to give him some money later if necessary. Now I'm going out for a stroll and see what the oil paste looks like. He changed into the exclusive Hawaiian suit, whistled, and went out. His pectoral muscles were still trembling, but the loose Hawaiian suit was enough to cover it. Actually, he wanted to do an outdoor live broadcast, but after considering the threat of the broken, he gave up on the idea. The feeling of being watched in the dark made him feel extremely uncomfortable. Sometimes, he even wondered if he should expand his business and help the Chinese military nurture a batch of people like Shuelin. That way, they could easily crush the world of destruction to prevent those people from stirring up trouble every day. When Chen Guang walked to the backyard, Pierce came up to him excitedly and pulled him into the crowd. Chen Guang's eyelids twitched when he saw the scenery of the party. The ancients were not honest with me. The corrupt life of the people of America was really despicable. There were really so many beautiful models. Their style was extremely bold. Their clothes were very revealing, and their behavior was quite debauched. It was the complete embodiment of the corrupt life of America that was often framed on Weibo. Well, in fact, most of them wore nothing. Even if there were some who wore something, it was at most a thong, AC, and all sorts of other attire. If they did an outdoor live broadcast, they would be banned for 30 years because of pornography. This was simply degenerating with each passing day, and people's hearts were no longer what they used to be. As a veteran pervert in the country, Chen Guang couldn't stand the scene, and his face turned red. I lost. You guys are too good at playing. Chen Guang was looking at others, and others were looking at him. Although Pierce was always overly enthusiastic in front of him, in the city of Detroit, and even in the entire North American boxing world, Pierce was also a well-known figure. Whether it was the models who took the money to attend the party today, or the other men who were invited to the party, seeing that Pierce was so enthusiastic to Chen Guang, they would inevitably focus more on him, guessing and curious about the identity of this man. Pierce saw that Chen Guang was distracted by the models, so he quietly changed the way he addressed him. "Leet, is this your first time attending this kind of party?" Previously, Chen Guang had told him that his English name was Leet, which sounded much more intimate than Mr. Chen. No, I do this every day in China. I am not short of money." Chen Guang himself was a tycoon with a net worth of hundreds of millions. His reputation was the most important thing in the world. He couldn't lose the battle even if he lost, and he had to brag. "That's right. I underestimated you, Mr. Chen." Looking at Chen Guang, whose face was flushed by the models who kept coming up to greet him, but he had to pretend to be experienced, Pierce had nothing to say to him. Huaxia people were really famous for their pride and suffering. In fact, Chen Guang didn't have a good impression of these blonde, blue-eyed, hot, and unbridled models. Even if these people came up to tease him, he wouldn't be tempted. First, these foreign beauties didn't quite meet his personal aesthetic standards. Second, having a relationship with these people didn't conform to his outlook on life. Third, he was a Huaxia person after all, and he didn't quite adapt to the worldview of the United States. How could he exchange bodily fluids with them if his worldview didn't match? So, he just looked at them. If he really wanted to do something, he'd better save it. At this time, Chen Guang was in the mood to look at other people in the party. In addition to several young boxers he had seen in China before, there were 7 or 8 strong men. Among them, there was a white guy who was shockingly strong. He had a tiger's back and a bear's waist, and his arms were thicker than Chen Guang's thighs. That's Bowman from New Jersey. He's a rather amateur super heavyweight boxer with a terrible temper. He's not very talented in boxing, and his tactical skills are very average. His dynamic vision and reflexes are terrible. But he is quite strong. He came to participate in the arm wrestling competition. Last year, he was in the top 16, but he was defeated by Dennis. That's not bad. Pierce introduced Dennis, who was last year's world champion and the overlord of the world of arm wrestling with extraordinary talent. When Chen Guang heard that Bowman was his competitor, his interest was piqued. He took a few more glances at Bowman. At the same time, Bowman was also looking at Chen Guang and raised his fist in provocation. "By the way, right, are you interested in playing with that machine?" As the two of them walked, Pierce pointed to a huge machine by the side of the pool. In front of the machine, there were 3 or 4 people. They were punching the target of the machine with their fists, making loud banging sounds. Chen Guang rolled his eyes. This guy still didn't give up. He wanted me to test the strength of his fists. Isn't this a common toy in the game hall? It's not interesting. Considering Pierce's heart, Chen Guang decided to politely decline him. Otherwise, how would he feel if he scared him to death? Unexpectedly, Pierce waved his hand. No. This is not a toy in the game hall. I spent tens of thousands of dollars to customize a professional strength tester. It's very accurate. Of course, for a professional boxer, it can be said to be a favorite toy. How about it? Try it? Old Pierce rubbed his fingers excitedly. He was getting more and more impatient. According to his judgment, Right Chen should be able to easily hit about 500 kilograms of force. But that was far from his limit. After his first punch, it would be time for him to show his professional level. He only needed to give him a very simple instruction. If he only used one punch posture, he should be able to easily grasp the essentials of strength. With the help of the machine, Right Chen could clearly see his own progress. He would definitely be fascinated by the feeling of becoming stronger quickly. Okay, I'll try. But Mr. Pierce, I really don't want to be a boxer. It's okay. You can try first. As he spoke, Pierce took Chen Guang to the strength tester. Hey, brat. What did you mean by that look? Are you looking down on me? As the two of them passed by the big man, Bowman suddenly reached out and blocked in front of Chen Guang. He looked at him with a face full of displeasure. Pierce was right. This guy's temper was really bad. Just now, Chen Guang looked at him a bit more, and he was not being honest. Bowman, shut up. Go play with your woman. Pierce glared at Bowman, which made the big man withdraw his hand in embarrassment. He said with grievance, Mr. Pierce, why are you so enthusiastic to this little Chinese shorty? Look at his arm. It's so thin. Is he malnourished? Chen Guang's eyes widened. He had lived for so many years, and there was actually a day when he was called a shorty? And what the hell is malnourished? My Kirin arm is actually malnourished. What's wrong with this world? Don't lie to me even though I didn't study much. Chen Guang silently looked at Bowman, who was nearly 1 meters tall and looked like a giant bear. Well, compared to this guy, he really was malnourished. Pierce was afraid that Chen Guang would be angry, so he shouted at Bowman again, Bowman. I told you to shut up. You are just hanging around in the super heavyweight division. Wright is a genius in the middleweight division. Why does he want to compare arms with you? When Bowman saw that Pierce was really angry, he felt suffocated and gasped for breath. Okay, Bowman, I know you don't have any bad intentions, but Wright is Chinese. If your behavior and words were to be exchanged in China, it would be a provocation. Do you understand? Wright is my friend. You have to respect my friend. Pierce knew his bad temper, so he said a little more to try to ease his mood. Well, I'm very sorry, Mr. Pierce, and Chinese Wright, but I still think you are too thin and weak. Your country must not have enough food to eat and often suffers from famine, right? Pierce also had to give up on Bowman. If he knew that this guy's brain was so short-circuited, why did he invite him to the party? Chen Guang finally spoke. He pointed at Pierce's dynamometer with a sullen face and snorted. Your name is Bowman, right? I have a question. What's your best result against that machine? It doesn't matter if you say I'm thin or short, but you actually said that our country is suffering from famine? It's a matter of national righteousness. Those who offend our country will pretend to be pretentious even if they are far away. This is intolerable. Old man will teach you a lesson today. Don't look down on people. I have to tell you that a thick arm is useless. A big fist is just for show. The size of an atomic bomb is not big, but it can blow you up. Chapter 696. What do you mean? Bowman squinted his eyes. Of course, he could hear the provocation in Chen Guang's words. Pierce seemed to have guessed Chen Guang's thoughts. He was quite conflicted. He wanted to see what level Chen Guang was at when he went all out on the dynamometer, but he didn't want Chen Guang's opponent to be Bowman. Bowman's technical and tactical level was very ordinary, and he never had many outstanding achievements in the super heavyweight boxing ring. He was often the background and stepping stone for others to become boxing champions. But no one could deny that the strength of his iron fist could not be said to dominate the boxing ring, but it could at least be ranked in the top 5 in history. It was very terrifying. His explosive power and absolute strength could be called perfect. What shackled him was only his boxing business, his reflexes, and his character flaws. Pierce quietly patted Chen Guang's shoulder. He thought about it again and still hoped that Chen Guang would not continue to waste words with Bowman. He was still hoping to help Chen Guang build up his confidence and then pull him into the professional boxing world. If he gave Bowman, who only had brute force and no brains, a blow to his confidence at the beginning, who could he reason with? Right, don't pay attention to him. Let's go to the side and drink. You are not a professional boxer yet, and you can't bring out the full potential of your body. Don't care about other people's data. Pierce didn't even want to let Chen Guang test the waters on the dynamometer. He didn't think that Chen Guang, who had already entered the pretentious state, would be so easy to stop. My pectoral muscles were roaring, and my Chilean arms were raging, okay? If I don't use this guy named Bowman as a sacrifice, I'll be letting down my pectoral muscles that I've just trained. Actually, Chen Guang really wanted to know to what extent his arm strength would improve after training his pectoral muscles. Wouldn't it be nice to have a fresh and hot reference object? Bowman, I don't mean anything special. I just want to know what your best result is. Make it simple. Make it simple. Give me an accurate number and cut the crap. Chen Guang put on a cold face and crossed his arms, ignoring Pierce, who was trying to mediate. Bowman grinned. It sounds like you want to challenge me. Pierce clutched his forehead in pain. He couldn't stop it anymore. Bowman, you've trained for many years as a professional boxer. There's nothing to be proud of. Control your emotions, 747 kilograms, Mr. Pierce. This is the figure I got half a year ago before I participated in the Golden Belt competition. Bowman said proudly. The numbers were indeed frightening. In the entire history of boxing, there were no more than 10 people who could match Pierce's performance with a machine like that. Okay, Bowman, I know you've been working hard. That's it. Pierce was afraid that Chen Guang would be hurt, so he quickly tried to smooth things over. Chen Guang grinned. Yo, not bad. Bowman proudly said, of course, not everyone can be as strong as me. For example, you, Mr. Wright, the little guy from Huaxia. Although I'm not particularly rich, I can treat you to a good meal of steak. That will help you gain some weight. Shut up. 747 kilograms? That's nothing. Chen Guang suddenly turned around and walked to the dynamometer. Knowing Bowman's data, there was no point in talking nonsense with him. Right, wait. Pierce tried to stop him, but it was too late. Chen Guang trotted to the dynamometer and said loudly, "Excuse me, everyone. I'm in a hurry." Mr. Pierce, why do you care about him? Even if this guy is really a genius like you said, isn't it good to teach him a lesson? Bowman looked at Chen Guang's back disdainfully. He thought to himself, with this guy's physique, he should be on drugs if he can hit the standard of a middleweight boxer. Although Pierce's estimate was optimistic, and he thought that Chen Guang should be able to easily exceed 500 kilograms, it was still too far away from Bowman's peak of 747 kilograms. Alas, how did things become like this? In fact, there were many different theories about fist force. For example, a weightlifter's arm strength was undoubtedly very strong, but they might not be able to punch as hard as an average boxer. In addition, there were many different statistical methods. For example, it depended on the instantaneous explosive force of the fist when it hit the target, the thrust exerted when it continued to push forward, or the impulse and momentum transmitted by the fist to the opponent during the entire process of punching out and retracting the fist. After converting the parameters such as the area of force, a relatively accurate Newton force could also be obtained. Currently, the calculation method used by Pierce's equipment seemed to produce a higher number, but this did not mean that Pierce's theory was inaccurate, because it was originally a horizontal comparison calculation method. In the North American boxing world, Pierce's system was highly recognized. Almost all famous boxers had participated in the Pierce system test, and the results were quite convincing. Even in the world, many countries had widely adopted the Pierce system. When Wu Shan said that Chen Guang's fist force was 800 kilograms, he also used the calculation method of Pierce's system. This was also what Pierce was most proud of. In addition to being a well-known professional boxing coach, he was also a well-known sports theorist. His coaching career was much more successful than his boxing career. According to different classifications, boxers in each weight class had a fist force test ranking. Bowman's peak record was 747 kilograms, ranked third in the current super heavyweight class, and fifth in history. Currently, the number one in the current and history was another genius super heavyweight, Hancock. His peak record was 807 kilograms. On the other side, the crowd in front of the strength tester had long noticed the dispute between the Huaxia Kid and Bowman. Seeing him stride over, the crowd had the mentality of watching a good show, and they all moved to the sides. This guy, he can't really want to challenge Bowman, right? Don't talk nonsense. Although Bowman has never won a gold belt, his punches are really no joke. Last year, I gave him a punch and almost KO'd on the spot. I don't know what Mr. Pierce is thinking. Why doesn't he stop this meaningless challenge? After all, this right Chen and Bowman are not in the same weight class. There is no value in comparing, right? Who knows, but it seems that Mr. Pierce really values right Chen. Maybe he really is a middleweight genius, the next Mayweather or Pacquiao. Listening to the crowd gradually gather around him and talk, Bowman finally realized that he seemed to have done something wrong. Mr. Pierce, I'm really sorry. You know I don't have much bad intentions towards him. I've always spoken like this. Pierce waved his hand helplessly. All right, shut up. If he doesn't want to become a professional boxer because of this, don't even think about asking me to train you in the future. Even if you pay me $500,000 a month, it's still impossible. When the crowd heard this, they were finally sure that they had guessed correctly. Mr. Pierce really did like this Huaxia guy. Bowman was anxious. With his level and talent, after getting a tailor-made training plan by Pierce, he had finally been able to stand in the ring of the finals of the fight for the gold belt from a second-rate boxer. If he really offended Pierce, he could almost directly announce his retirement. Don't. All right, Bowman, Mr. Pierce is angry. Whatever you say is useless. I will participate in your retirement charity match. Jared, you bastard, I will definitely blast you into the sky. Pierce waved his hand impatiently. Be quiet, all of you. After saying that, he nervously looked at Chen Guang, who was a few meters in front of him. At this time, Chen Guang was standing about a meter in front of the dynamometer, but he was not in a hurry to throw a punch. Instead, he closed his eyes and hung his hands very relaxed on both sides. No one knew what he was doing. Is this the magic of the Huaxia people? Is he practicing Qigong? China Kung Fu? Like Bruce Lee? Someone couldn't help but tease. At this time, Chen Guang suddenly opened his eyes. He clenched his hands into fists and raised them to the level of the tip of his nose. His back was slightly arched like a slingshot, and the tip of his left foot was on tiptoe. He was ready to punch. Pierce's worried eyes suddenly focused. He didn't know why, but he seemed to vaguely hear a buzzing vibration from Chen Guang's direction. It felt like an electric motor was storing energy. Pierce didn't hear it wrong. The buzzing sound was actually because Chen Guang was constantly tightening all the muscles in his body, especially the two pectoralis major that had just been trained. They couldn't stop shaking, and the vibration was even more violent than when the phone was switched on. Chen Guang adjusted his breathing, and his muscles were getting tighter and tighter. Pierce's eyes became more and more serious. Unlike other boxers or ordinary players who participated in arm wrestling, he had a pair of very sharp eyes. In his eyes, Chen Guang inexplicably gave him a feeling of extremely terrible explosive power. The loose Hawaiian suit wrapped around his body. As he kept accumulating energy in his body, a gust of wind blew, making him look a little funny at this time. But Pierce couldn't laugh at all. He faintly had an illusion in his heart that Wright didn't seem to need training. He knew how to use force. In fact, Pierce really didn't guess wrong. Previously in the cafe in Yanjing, the reason why he felt that Chen Guang's boxing skills were very poor, and his strength was very poor was purely because Chen Guang was playing the role of Will Smith, who played Ollie. He deliberately lowered his level in the world of acting. Chen Guang's Kirin arm had already been tempered in the world in the cup, and it had even evolved to a more perfect level than ordinary people at the genetic level. How could he not know how to use force? Since they wanted to see God, and Chen Guang felt that it was necessary to defend the dignity of the Chinese people, of course, he didn't hold back anymore. He planned to scare Bowman, who had a bad mouth, into shutting his mouth, or at least not closing it. In the past, he had never tried to punch with all his strength. After all, when fighting with people, who would let you pose for a long time? There was no doubt that today would be his heaviest punch that surpassed himself. Finally, Chen Guang moved. The muscles of his right leg suddenly tightened, and his left foot, which was on tiptoe, suddenly took a big step forward. At the same time, his right leg, which had just tightened and bent, opened up like a spring. His originally arched back also quickly stretched out. Chen Guang's left hand was horizontally in front of his body to maintain balance, and his right hand was pulled back like a bow, tightly stretched. At this moment, Pierce was completely stunned. What a perfect strength technique, what a terrible explosive force. Not only did he have a terrible strength in his hands, but the strength that his legs released for a short period of time when they bounced out was even stronger than the former heavy cannon of the football world, Roberto Carlos. This guy was simply the embodiment of strength and beauty. Chen Guang's right hand opened up more and more, and his body also leaned forward. Time seemed to stop at this moment, but suddenly accelerated. His right hand finally exerted force, swinging wildly, and his fist blasted out like a cannonball. Boom! Almost no one clearly saw how his right fist blasted out, but there was already a deafening loud sound coming from the dynamometer. The dynamometer, which was verified to be able to withstand more than 1,500 kilograms of force when it was tested, trembled wildly, and the target that had been knocked over by Chen Guang's fist was on the verge of collapse. The huge backyard of the villa was silent. Everyone stared at the terrible 4-digit number on the digital display on top of the dynamometer with their mouths wide open, unable to say a word. 1,088 kilograms. Pierce went crazy, completely crazy. He covered his mouth and almost couldn't help but want to cry and kneel on the ground. He was 100% sure that this dynamometer, which he had personally participated in designing, couldn't have any possibility of malfunction, and the data that Wright typed out must be real and reliable. He really didn't dream that on such an occasion, for the first time, he would see a human's fist break through the 4-digit natural moat, and directly advance to the terrible number of 1,088 kilograms. As a retired boxer, as a representative of the professional boxing world, Pierce knew what this meant. This made him so happy that his eyes brimmed with tears, and he even felt that he had no regrets in this life. What was even more frightening was that this number was actually punched out by a middleweight. Bowman's mouth was wide open, and he really couldn't say a word for a long time. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Something must have gone wrong somewhere. T gone wrong. This is definitely an unprecedented punch in human history. Right. Oh my God, my right, you really are the angel that God gave me. You're like a light cannon. That's right, a light cannon. Right, from now on, this will be your nickname in the boxing ring. Pierce slowly walked in Chen Guang's direction with an intoxicated look on his face. Lord Guang was also shocked. Compared to the 800 kilograms he had punched out the last time on Phoenix Spring Mountain, he had already unknowingly broken through to the level of 1,088 kilograms. That was an increase of a whole 35%. It looked like the hardships he had suffered recently hadn't been in vain. His Qilin arm had already reached its limit. This change must have been caused by the evolution of the other muscles in his body, such as the perfected wind god's legs and the 2 great pectoral muscles. He turned back to glance at Bowman very proudly and coolly. Bowman, let me gift you a sentence. A big head doesn't mean a hard fist. Do you understand now? Awesome, I love seeing you guys so scared that you want to kneel on the ground. Needless to say, in just a moment, the dozens of people present began to send faith points to his Qilin arm. Although due to the number of people, there wasn't a lot of faith points, but at least it proved that this kind of posturing was a very effective way to gain faith points. Then, Chen Guang coolly shook his head again, intending to wave to enhance his posturing effect. Hiss. Pain. F***ck. I forgot to train the pectoral muscles in the chest and abdomen. My back muscles are strained. Chapter 697. His back was throbbing in pain, and the smile on his face froze. But so many people were looking at him with worship in their eyes, and he had to maintain a great and honorable image. Therefore, in the eyes of the crowd, Chen Guang maintained this unfathomable appearance, coupled with the huge weight of 1088 kilograms on his head, inexplicably awe-inspiring. Pierce slowly walked forward. Right, I really didn't expect this. This old man was somewhat incoherent. In his professional career as a boxer and coach, he had seen countless geniuses and countless experts, but he had never imagined that he could actually witness with his own eyes a man of Chen Guang's size punch that surpassed Hancock's by nearly 300 kilograms. What kind of concept was this? This simply subverted his life philosophy. He even felt that he was ridiculous. Before, he had actually thought that Wright didn't know how to use force. If he didn't know how to use force, then no one in the world could punch. With his current heavy punch, he didn't even need to deliberately attack the opponent's vital parts when he stepped into the boxing ring. He only needed to bombard the opponent's torso. No matter how the opponent blocked or dodged, he would be sent flying. Right, you're a natural boxer. If you don't step into the boxing ring, it's simply a loss to mankind. The more Pierce spoke, the more excited he became. The others also walked forward quickly. Many of the active boxers present imagined in their minds what it would feel like to be hit in the head by a heavy punch of more than 1,000 kilograms. They only felt their scalps go numb. It wouldn't be directly smashed in the head, would it? In fact, they really didn't guess wrong. Before, when Chen Guang punched 800 kilograms, he had directly used the strength that penetrated through the bones to shatter people's hearts. Now that his strength had risen to this level, even with the buffer of the boxing glove, perhaps even a strong man like Bowman couldn't bear it. Bowman rubbed his hands in fear as he came forward. Mr. Wright, please forgive my rudeness before. He had such a temperament. He didn't hesitate to offend people, and he didn't hesitate to apologize. Being straightforward had its advantages. Chen Guang still had a calm smile on his face. He had the demeanor of an expert. It's okay. I'm not a petty person. Everyone thought to themselves, yes, you're not being calculative. You're just unhappy with Bowman's provocation, so you turned around and hit a new world record of 1088 kilograms. At this time, Pierce spoke again. Right, really, come and participate in the competition. I can find someone to help you register with the association now. Latest by next week, you can rush for the golden belt. Come on, give it a try and challenge the impossible. I always feel that you can dominate from the welterweight division all the way to the super heavyweight division. You will be the strongest in history. Everyone knew that Pierce was not joking. If Chen Guang was willing to participate in the competition, everything he said could become a reality. Even though there were at least 3 people present who had the strength to fight for the championship belt in the heavyweight and cruiser classes respectively, none of them had the courage to take Chen Guang's punch head-on. What's more, this guy didn't look tall or strong, which meant that he was exceptionally agile. An opponent who was agile and could fire a ton of heavy artillery at any time. Just the thought of it made one's hair stand on end, okay? For a moment, the scene suddenly became silent. Pierce was the only one who maintained a face full of excitement. Everyone else was silent. If this Wright really planned to make his debut, it meant that everyone here would live under his shadow and never see the light of day. He was so young. As long as he had systematic and scientific training, he could even rule the boxing world for 15 years. Their fates would change because of a single sentence from him. Just thinking about it made them feel so hopeless that they felt weak all over. Chen Guang first looked at Pierce, then at the others. He was a little tempted. The title of the world's #1 boxing champion was resounding enough, and it would certainly be very profitable. But there was a problem. At this time, he hadn't cultivated inner force yet. Just his physical body alone was enough to make these people look up to him. It would take at most 3 months to master inner force. If he waited until he mastered inner force and then came out to fight, wouldn't that be pure bullying? Moreover, boxing was a relatively pure sport. Sooner or later, he would use the inner force cheat. It would be hard on his conscience to participate in the competition with the cheat. You frogs at the bottom of the well thought that I was invincible, but you didn't know that the old man was still vulnerable to the beautiful Wenwen, okay? You guys have never seen the power, so you only know how to worship me. Then the problem was, if he practiced inner force to fight, his conscience would be really bad. In addition, he might have violated some kind of taboo. But it was impossible not to practice inner force. So, although what Pierce said was beautiful, it was actually not fun. Mr. Pierce, I have a question. You always say boxing is beautiful, charming, and attractive, but is it really interesting to me? A competition without an opponent, I think, will it be boring? Chen Guang decided to pour some cold water on Pierce, lest this guy had a face full of fanaticism. After saying that, he didn't wait for Pierce to come back to his senses and smiled apologetically. Sorry, I have to go back to read the script. Yes, I am an actor, and this is what I like to do. Compared to being invincible, I prefer to do things that are challenging. After saying that, even he himself couldn't stand it. Acting cool made him have goosebumps all over his body. He couldn't take it anymore. Therefore, old Master Guang lifted his leg and left without stopping. Damn, my back is throbbing in pain. Acting cool for a moment, but my muscles are all pulled. My back muscles are pulled and my psoas are strained. I have to go back and take a second medicinal bath. Fortunately, I brought a total of 4 sets of medicine. The one family special medicine should also have some effect on healing the injuries. I hope it won't affect tomorrow's competition. After he left, the huge party was silent for a long time. Pierce didn't recover from the heavy blow for a long time. The others didn't feel much better either. The greatest sorrow in the world is that something you treasure is easily obtained by others, and then abandoned like it's an old shoe. Pierce and the others in the boxing world felt this way. Mr. Pierce, don't be sad. Maybe what he said is right. If he really wants to become a professional boxer, all the matches will lose their suspense. This isn't necessarily a good thing for boxing, right? A heavyweight champion next to him consoled him. Pierce sighed. Although what you said makes sense, it's still too much of a blow to me. Ouch, 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 ouch. Ignoring the flood outside, Chen Guang lay in the bathtub again and read the new script on his phone. When he first laid down, his back was in great pain. But as time passed, the medicine slowly entered his body. Plus, the ergonomics of the jacuzzi tub was really comfortable. After a long time, he fell asleep. When he woke up, the injury on his back had recovered by about 80 to 90%. It would more or less affect the next day's competition, but it wouldn't be a problem for him to pass the preliminaries. He just had to bathe again tomorrow. He went online to see what was going on in the country. The netizens were really idle. It had been a few days already, but they were still criticizing him for performing in Women. But after being criticized for a long time, Chen Guang became more and more resistant to it, indicating that his emotions were very stable. The piano joint performance that the Tianguang agency had left in the country with the 4 King Kongs was slowly gaining popularity. This was the advantage of having someone to give advice. There were many details that Chen Guang didn't have to worry about. After he made it clear that his main goal was to show off his skills and that he was confident that he could beat any piano master in the world, Lu Xiaoyang and the others also went all out and even invited 3 internationally renowned piano masters to help. Of course, this wasn't to do them a favor. It was just to highlight the fact that it was easier to get things done with money. Although the 3 of them said that they would help, they would probably end up as cannon fodder for Chen Guang. Then, he sneaked into the class chat group and peeked at them for a while. The day of school reopened was getting closer and closer. There were already students returning to school. But when they heard that the counselor had been changed to a new male teacher, everyone was inevitably disappointed. It wasn't easy for him to get a beautiful counselor like Teacher Zhua. He was still bragging to his high school classmates, but in the end, it was gone. Sun Xiaoxuan was indeed still in the laboratory in Detroit. In the group chat, he saw that she probably bought a flight back to China the day after tomorrow. Chen Guang calculated the time and was secretly happy. It was just right for him. When the time came, he could pretend to meet her on the plane. This was probably the best way to surprise her. It wasn't too intimate, but he didn't have to feel guilty about it. Also, Chen Guang received a call from Jiang Yuanshao, who told him a piece of good news. The broken world was in big trouble. Previously, when the World Breakers sect came to find trouble with him, not only did they die without a complete corpse, but the intelligence department also found a lot of traces in the wreckage of the minivan and found out their base in North America by following the clues. Towards such a terrorist organization, the reaction of the American people was even more agitated than the Chinese military. They immediately rushed up and wiped them out. It wasn't clear how much damage the broken world suffered, but there was no doubt that they wouldn't be able to catch their breath in North America for a while. Chen Guang didn't have to worry about his personal safety for the time being. Chen Guang was also happy. He was worried that he wouldn't be able to start a live broadcast of the competition tomorrow. Now that he didn't have to worry about it, it was the perfect time to do it. Based on the principle that every bit of faith was a bit of faith, he quickly contacted Fang Tianyu and asked him to find Shang Xiaozong to arrange the promotion of the live broadcast. He wanted to warm up the outdoor live broadcast of the competition tomorrow so that the Kirin arm could produce enough faith in one go. This kind of thing had to be publicized in advance. There was a 12-hour time difference between the two countries. The competition would be in the day here, but it would be late at night in China. One less audience meant one less faith. As soon as he received Fang Tianyu's call, Xiaozong, who had been waiting for Chen Guang's visit, was overjoyed. He chatted for a while and quickly started to promote it online. The strongest in history. The most troublesome in history. Your brother all-rounder is arm wrestling again. The most unprofessional college student. Playing the piano next week, but now arm wrestling in America. Everyone, don't scold him for acting in a movie. He's busy with something else. Who else can be more troublesome than brother all-rounder? Guangguang is so busy. The first Chinese to challenge an arm wrestling competition. The grand event of the arm wrestling world, challenging the limits of mankind, surpassing the Olympics, and surpassing the impossible. Science direction. What is an arm wrestling competition? Who is stronger, the people in this competition or the world weightlifting champion? What's the status of Asians in this competition? In just an hour, the article with the above title swept across the entire Chinese online world. Not only that, Yu Hong also used his connections to find a live streaming website in Europe and the United States. The English version of the article also swept through social media sites such as Twitter and Must-I with the help of foreign marketing accounts. Regarding this, even Chen Guang's fans could not accept it, let alone others. We are still busy trying to clear your name of acting in a movie. Why are you playing the piano again? Fine, we already knew that you can play the piano and are very good at it. We were already prepared to buy tickets, but in the end, you went to America to arm wrestle? Brother all-rounder, your tempo is so fast and fierce. Before this, the international arm wrestling competition was not very well known internationally, especially in China. There were not many terms on Baidu. But after Bamboo and Tianguang Brokerage worked together to promote it, the popularity of the competition suddenly increased. People would not know if they did not check it, but when they did, they were shocked. Unlike professional weightlifting competitions, the arm wrestling competition was filled with talented weirdos. If these people were asked to do weightlifting, they might not be able to get good results in the Olympics due to various factors such as technique or abdominal strength. But in terms of arm strength, they were indeed stronger than Olympic champions. Take Dennis, who had recently become famous for his monstrous strength, as an example. This man was born with bones that were abnormally thick and strong. He was recognized as the person with the strongest finger joints in the world. An ordinary strong man's palm would be the size of a baby's hand when placed next to his. In addition, Alexei, Dave, Todd, Devin, and the others in the past few years were all monstrous existences with extraordinary talents. With the combination of acquired training and innate genetic advantages, these people's arms were as thick as an elephant's legs. The circumference of their biceps could even reach more than 50 centimeters. Just like how Asians had a monopoly on table tennis and black people had a monopoly on sprinting and other track and field events, the arm wrestling world was almost exclusively dominated by white people. The racial barrier in the arm wrestling world was even stronger than that of many other industries. It was not a barrier that could be broken through with simple hard work. It was due to the genetic difference between people. After seeing photos and videos of other scary athletes, the netizens compared Chen Guang's physique with others. Well, they had no choice but to admit defeat this time. Although Chen Guang had used many crushing victories to prove one thing, no matter what, as long as he participated in it, he was definitely the strongest. But other people's hands were as thick as your waist, how could you compete with them in terms of strength? Just looking at his physique alone, even Chen Guang's die-hard fans only wanted to say one thing to him. Brother all-rounder, be a good boy, stop being naughty and come back. Practice the piano at home. You have to perform on stage in a few days. We've all bought tickets. Can you not go and die? What if your hand is crushed? Are you going to play the piano with your feet in a few days? That's the domain of monsters. Normal people like us shouldn't go. This is called knowing one's limitations. It's not embarrassing, but it's not worth it if you get hurt. It's not that we don't have enough fans, it's that we can't move our fans. Chapter 698. Not to mention the fans on the internet, even the people around Chen Guang couldn't handle his tricks. For example, Lin Jingwei hurriedly advised him on WeChat. Brother Guang, come back. City people are too cunning. Don't go and cause trouble. Chen Guang replied to the guy who didn't give him face. Don't call me Brother Guang. Call me Herculean King. Herculean King my ass. Look at the bodies of those monsters. I know you are good at fighting, but don't randomly choose opponents. Little Lin was also advising him with good intentions. After all, it seemed like a science fiction story. Chen Guang almost told him that he had just hit a world record of 1088 kilograms today. After thinking about it, he held back. With this guy's character, he wouldn't believe it until he saw it with his own eyes. On the other side, Bai Nyangzi and Xiong'er had already frantically Sun Xiaoxuan in the class group, telling her to hurry to Detroit to stop Chen Guang from courting death. Sun Xiaoxuan was also anxious, but she was leaving the day after tomorrow. The day after tomorrow, she had to represent the project team to do a paper report. Tomorrow, she had to rehearse with the seniors in the project team. She also had to find the project team boss for an internship certificate. She also had to visit a Chinese expert elder. She couldn't leave at all. She sent another private message to Chen Guang. On one hand, she asked him why he came to the United States and didn't tell her that he was in Detroit. On the other hand, she was advising him not to court death and go to her school. After she was done with her work, she would take him around Detroit to see some famous attractions. Left with no choice, Chen Guang could only feign death. He didn't blame these people for looking down on him. After all, he didn't believe that he could be compared with those monsters. But how could he tell others that his pair of Qilin arms was just quality, not weight? Most people wouldn't believe it, okay? Forget it. Let them complain. Anyway, after the preliminaries tomorrow, these people will know how powerful he is. Tomorrow, you'll know that ambition doesn't depend on age, and strength doesn't depend on the size of your arms. The domestic comments were relatively restrained. They only treated his suicidal behavior as a joke, or perhaps it was a gimmick of brother all-rounder. After all, as time passed, everyone realized that although Brother Almighty didn't really like money and rarely used his fame to earn money, he seemed to be very fond of fame. Although she did not know why he had such a good reputation and was afraid that others did not know how capable he was, it also meant that he was not as otherworldly as he looked on the surface. Otherwise, he would not have specially looked for the Tang Jia Foundation to cooperate with him to set up a Tianguang agency just to package and hype himself up. From time to time, he would also find some things to make his existence known to others. However, when the same thing happened overseas, especially after YouTube, the leading international video business, joined in the hype. The international discussion about this reckless Huaxia man who tried to challenge the world of wristwatches became less polite. Is he joking? This funny guy, his waist is not even as thick as my Dennis arm. His arm is not even as thick as Dennis' fingers. This is probably the low-end hype of a Chinese celebrity. Signing up for the competition on the spot and then paying people to deliberately lose to him. If he gets it back to China, he can brag about it for a whole year. After all, it's 3-0. I can do it too. I'm a Dota fan and admire Sean Dota. I also think he's the strongest Dota solo player in history, but arm wrestling has nothing to do with fighting Dota. I'll go to the venue tomorrow. I plan to do a live broadcast. Do any of you want to watch? Previous poster, please follow him the whole time. Don't give him a chance to bribe you. Bowman, young lads, right is not simple. I'll also be participating tomorrow, but I can only tell you in advance that right is very strong, stronger than you can imagine. Bowman, you brainless big guy, are you stupid? Or did you become stupid after being KO'd last time? Bowman, give me a pill. Son of the beach. Hit. Ace is alive. Beep 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 beep. Bowman, who tried to speak up for Chen Guang, was scolded all over as soon as he appeared. Bowman, whose physical combat power was in the hundreds and whose verbal combat power was over 10,000, instantly exploded. He guarded his social media account and started scolding the netizens. When he came back to his senses, it was already time for Pierce, who had dark circles under his eyes, to find him for breakfast. No, Pierce was a black man. His whole face was black, and he didn't have dark circles under his eyes. Pierce obviously didn't sleep well last night. He was still extremely sad that he couldn't pull Chen Guang into the ring. Bowman, what's wrong with your eyes? At the dining table, Pierce asked. Bowman said in a muffled voice, yesterday, I was scolding people on the internet the whole night. Someone teased you again about the last time you were KO'd in the head in 30 seconds? Don't be sad, that was just an accident. It's not embarrassing to lose to Hancock. Pierce comforted him. Bowman looked at him silently. Mr. Pierce, you're definitely not comforting me. Yes, that's right. I'm not comforting you. You also have to compete today. You didn't rest, and you were online all night. Do you look like a professional athlete? Pierce was also very good at lecturing people. Bowman looked at Chen Guang, who was yawning and ready to eat breakfast, and explained, actually, I was scolding people on the internet because of Right. About Right? What about him? Pierce also looked at Chen Guang. A lot of people on Twitter said that Right was going to participate in the arm wrestling competition. I saw a lot of people looking down on him, teasing him, and saying a few words for him. As a result, a group of people chased me on Twitter and scolded me. You know, that's my temper. I scolded them all night. Huh. Pierce was stunned at first, and then he suddenly remembered something. Originally, Chen Guang had not planned to pay attention to him at all, but after he heard about the arm wrestling competition, he immediately flew to Detroit. Did this guy really come for the arm wrestling competition? It was sad. For him, arm wrestling was more interesting than boxing. After eating, everyone drove straight to the competition venue, which was located in a large abandoned car factory 30 kilometers outside Detroit. The parking lot outside was already crowded with all kinds of cars, RVs, and trucks. Unlike Pierce, who lived in Detroit, many people in North America left their homes early and drove their RVs thousands of kilometers to come here, just to participate in the annual event and travel along the way. The prize money of the World Arm Wrestling Competition was not very attractive to Chen Guang. It was only $1 million, but it was a lot for ordinary people. Looking around, there were countless strong men, and of course, there were many beautiful women dressed in revealing clothes. Chen Guang and the staff sent by YouTube to assist the live broadcast met in the corner of the competition venue. A hot Chinese beauty named Bai Ling. Her Chinese was not very good, but it was barely understandable. There was also a cameraman. Chen Guang hated him because this guy and Bai Ling clearly had an affair. Chen Guang and Bai Ling worked together for a while, and the high-definition live stream was sent out and distributed to YouTube and Bamboo simultaneously. At 10:30 a.m. in Washington, 10:30 p.m. in Beijing, the audience who had been waiting for Bamboo's live broadcast for a long time finally got started. When the camera came out, the audience in the live broadcast room was amazed. "My brother is amazing." That's right, Chen Guang, who was fiddling with the camera, accidentally pointed the camera at Bai Ling's chest. Chen Guang's live broadcast of the World Arm Wrestling Competition kicked off in this unique way. Chapter 699. That. "Mr. Chen, I think you should let Marco carry the camera." In front of the camera, Bai Ling was a little shy. Chen Guang didn't think much of it. He turned around and let the annoying third wheel Marco carry the camera. He took out his phone and looked at the bullet screen. The pace in the live broadcast room had taken off. Brother All-Rounder is getting better and better. Now he has a beautiful assistant for outdoor live broadcasts. Something's up. Of course, who is Brother All-Rounder? How can he be a host if he doesn't do it? You don't say. This girl is really pretty. I'm a loyal supporter of Goddess Jean. This girl can't even speak Chinese fluently. She's definitely not good enough for our Brother All-Rounder. As for these bullet screen comments that wished for the world to be in chaos, Chen Guang said that he was a man of great character and did not hold it against them. But soon, a talented guy jumped out from the bullet screen. Chen Guang couldn't control the murderous intent in his hands. He used his phone's bullet screen assistant to send this guy to the detention room to calm down. This was what he said. "It's necessary to do it, but how is it enough? Brother All-Rounder's principle is to do it once." Below, a group of people followed 666666 and, "Brother, you're talented." For this kind of talented young man, Chen Guang thought it was necessary to send him to a small dark room to think about life. "Mr. Chen, can I interview you? Why did you suddenly decide to come to Detroit to participate in this World Arm Wrestling competition?" "I also grew up in Detroit. This is the 4th time I've encountered this competition in this city. As far as I know, the people who can participate in this competition are all very strong. Mr. Chen, although you're strong enough compared to ordinary people, compared to these contestants." Bai Ling was very cautious in her interview. As she spoke, she also looked at the big men coming and going with some suspicion. Although she was overseas, she knew a thing or two about Chen Guang. After all, Chen Guang had previously live-streamed on YouTube many times, and as a staff member of YouTube, she had directly participated in the work related to the Dota Throne Challenge. She also knew that this was a super streamer who did not play by the rules, but was extremely able to attract traffic. But this time, your crossover is a little too big. From the champion of the World Darts Championship to an esports player, to an actor star, and then from an actor star to a piano master. In the blink of an eye, you actually came to participate in the competition between Hercules. His methods were quite wild, and his tempo was very fierce. No matter how one looked at it, it felt like he was delivering food. Chen Guang was really tired of being bragged to these people for the past 2 days. Where did his confidence come from? "Thank you for your concern, Miss Bai, but this is unnecessary. I will not lose to anyone. No matter where it is, or what we are competing against, I will not lose. You just need to know this." Bai Ling was stunned. Although she grew up in the United States, she was imperceptibly influenced by the style of Europeans and Americans from a young age. Celebrities here were not very humble and low-key as a virtue, and there were many arrogant people who were not in the minority, but it was really rare to see someone as insolent as Chen Guang. "Little girl, I just heard what you asked lighter. Let me answer for him. Don't use his size to measure him, or you will be defeated like me." Bowman, who was waiting at the side, suddenly came over and barged into the camera. Bai Ling knew Bowman. Although this giant man had never won a championship belt in the boxing ring, he was still a well-known player who had participated in the WBC, WBO, and other boxing championship competitions for the championship belts. "Mr. Bowman, what are you doing?" Bai Ling was confused. Chen Guang also did not know whether to laugh or cry at Bowman's change in attitude. When he was being arrogant, his tail was up to the sky, but after knowing how powerful he was, he immediately turned into a brainless fan. This guy was too honest. There were viewers in the live broadcast room who knew what he was. Isn't that Bowman the Beast? Oh my God. Why does Brother Allrounder seem to be very familiar with him? Bowman the Beast? Who? A very famous super heavyweight boxer in North America, ranked in the top 20 in the world, known for his great strength. At this time, Pierce also came over. "Lighter, come and register your registration information." "Over here." Pierce was followed by a middle-aged man in staff uniform, who seemed to be his friend. Bai Ling and cameraman Marco followed behind Chen Guang and quickly went into reporter mode, introducing Pierce's life to the audience. This time, the live broadcast room was full of invincible talent. The old men in the audience thought that Brother Allrounder was now getting better and better. He was already talking and laughing with great scholars, and there were no ordinary people around. He just casually participated in an arm wrestling competition, and he was actually followed by a big shot in the North American boxing world. But in other words, this meant that if he lost face, he would really lose face internationally. "Mr. Chen, what level of competition are you going to participate in?" "How about the 75 kilograms group?" "This is the smallest competition." The staff of the arm wrestling competition asked with a smile. Although Chen Guang was brought to sign up for the competition for Pierce, his head was a bit shameful. The staff was already giving him face by not laughing out loud. Bai Ling, who had been behind Chen Guang, quickly explained in her broken Chinese, "Now that Chen Guang is about to officially sign up, from my personal point of view, his best choice is to participate in the 75 kilograms group." The audience in Chen Guang's live broadcast was also stirred up by this extremely arrogant foreigner. This grandson's words are really unpleasant. Although I think what he said makes sense, isn't this too disrespectful? I feel sorry for Brother Allrounder for 30 seconds. Brother Allrounder, don't be a coward. Roll up your sleeves. Beat him to death. Although I also want to blow like the person above, I feel like I can't blow it. Ren Chong fan number 1 fan, Ren Chong's fan club sends a congratulatory message. Wishing pretentious light and early hospitalization. Ren Chong fan number 1 fan has been muted. Admin 666,666. Not to mention these fans, at this time, there was another person who was even more miserable. Little brother Yang Shi was currently being scolded by Big Beard Deng. "Little Yang, you already knew that he was going to the United States, right?" Big Beard Deng glared at Yang Shi with a face full of resentment. He was also extremely disappointed with this incompetent young man. "I asked you to follow him closely these few days and take the opportunity to explain the script to him. Is this how you follow me? Now that he is our male lead and an investor, this matter is already set in stone. Whether or not he can act is one thing. Now that our itinerary has been set, what if he gets injured abroad? Who can we reason with?" Yang Shi sat dejectedly at the side, not daring to raise his head. He complained in his heart. "I want to stop him, but how can I control him?" "Director Deng, you said it yourself. He is now an investor, and I am just a small assistant. Even if you lend me 10 guts, I wouldn't dare to really make him unhappy, right? And as I said before, with President Chen's acting skills, there is really no need to worry. Forget it, let's not talk about it anymore. Who asked me to be his underling? You don't dare to stop him either, do you?" Yang Shi silently touched the corner of his mouth, which was almost crooked from being slapped by Big Beard. He felt bitter in his heart. Seeing Yang Shi's aggrieved look, Big Beard Deng's heart softened again. He patted him on the shoulder. Sigh, little Yang, don't blame me for being too hot-tempered. I am just anxious. The pressure is too great, too great. I know you are also in a difficult position, but your task is really important. I say, you are really too much. Although you only report the good news and not the bad, you told me that Chen Guang's acting skills are at the level of a best actor. Isn't that nonsense? And this lousy competition of his, sigh. Big Beard did not speak again. He turned his head and stared at the live broadcast on the computer screen. He muttered to himself, I know this foreigner called Damon. I worked with him briefly when I was filming in the United States 2 years ago. He is indeed very strong. I hope that Chen Guang doesn't really meet him, or else he will really be in danger. About 15 minutes later, as the registration ended, the results of the preliminary round groups were out. Big Beard's mouth was wide open, and he really could not say a word for a long time. I jinxed it. There was also an uproar in the live broadcast room. That's right, Chen Guang was really assigned to last year's third place, Damon, in the preliminary round. However, considering that the rules of the arm wrestling competition were relatively simple, ordinary volunteers could maintain basic fairness after some simple learning. Hello, everyone. After a short break and grouping, the grand event of the arm wrestling world, the preliminary stage of the World Arm Wrestling Competition, is about to officially begin. We will be broadcasting Chen Guang's journey in this competition. In short, let's wish him good results in advance. Bai Ling was still broadcasting dutifully, even though she herself felt that the so-called good results sounded like science fiction. As she explained to the camera, she couldn't help but look at the ambulance in the distance. She thought to herself, maybe, I can probably make it in time. The guy who had said on Twitter yesterday that he would be broadcasting Chen Guang's entire competition felt wronged. He had been following this Huaxia guy closely with his cell phone, hoping to capture the scene of him bribing others. In the end, this guy actually brought his own live stream team and was standing on YouTube's homepage. There was no audience in his room. Where are the people who said they would support me yesterday? You liars, you're worried about my traffic. Unlike the other preliminaries, Chen Guang's team had a huge difference in size between the two participants. At the same time, Daimon was also a key player. Therefore, the organizers of the competition had sent 2 professional referees to protect Chen Guang from the beginning. Daimon, this Huaxia guy named Right Chen has a very high status in Huaxia. You just need to win more or less. Don't really hurt him, or you will get into trouble. Do you understand? The person in charge of the organizer of the competition knew some things, and because of Pierce, he pulled Daimon to the side and instructed him before the competition started. Daimon looked at Chen Guang, who was not far away, and curled his lips in disdain. Sir, I understand what you mean, but look at him. His palm is like a baby in my hand. I'm really afraid that I will crush it if I use a little more strength. You can't blame me for that, right? The person in charge of the organizer was also having a headache. Can't you control your strength a little? All right, I'll try my best for your sake, sir. After waiting for a few more minutes, Chen Guang and Daimon finally stood in front of their respective tables. The tables used to host arm wrestling competitions were different from ordinary tables and chairs, especially the tables used for super heavyweight competitions. They had a pure cast iron frame, and the bottom was welded directly to the ground of an abandoned car factory. The surface was covered with a layer of rubber and sponge. On both sides of the table, there were metal pillars specially made for the players to hold onto. For Chen Guang, who was at a complete disadvantage in terms of weight, this was his trump card. Otherwise, if others used their weight to press him down, he would definitely be able to move his entire body. Kid, do you know what someone told me just now? Daimon stood on the other side of the table, stretching his arms with a provocative look on his face. Chen Guang ignored him. Just now, Mr. Green told me that you are a celebrity in Huaxia and have a very high status. He asked me to control my temper when I compete with you so that I won't hurt you. Chen Guang still ignored him. But I told him that it's very difficult because you are too weak. You should participate in the women's division for the 75 kilogram weight class and below. This is the world of tough guys, and it doesn't belong to you. Chen Guang finally ignored him. He first placed his arm on the table and then clenched his fist. You talk a lot of nonsense. If you are done, quickly shut up. Bowman and Pierce watched from the side. Bowman, who was very experienced, saw Chen Guang's expression and muttered softly, I have a feeling that Daimon is going to be in big trouble. Pierce nodded. If Wright can really unleash his strength from yesterday, Daimon will indeed be in big trouble. On the other side, Bai Ling and her cameraman, Marco, surrounded Chen Guang and Daimon's table. Ladies and gentlemen. The competition is about to begin. Bai Ling forcefully raised her voice, trying not to sound so weak. Other than Bai Ling, there were quite a number of people who had turned on the live broadcast at the same time. Each of them had their cell phones pointed in the direction of Chen Guang and Daimon. After all, the disparity between this pair of contestants was too great. Even though the competition was in full swing, they seemed rather unique. Other than that, the official live broadcast team of the competition also pointed their cameras at the two of them. The 4 big screens on the 4 sides of the factory showed the scene of the table at the same time. The people who hadn't noticed them at first were in an uproar. Hey! Did that bro fill in the wrong information when he registered? It seems like that's the case. But he seems to be planning on persisting in the competition. Don't joke around. He is facing Daimon. His hand will be broken. God bless him. Stop fooling around. The Huaxia people are basically atheists. Then, shall we wish him good luck? That's right. Good luck. On the big screen, Daimon finally stopped his chatter and similarly placed his hand on the table. As usual, the referee walked forward and tried to tie their hands together with a strap. Daimon shook his head. There's no need for that, right? I only need 1 second to settle him. I won't let go. Chen Guang didn't care and pursed his lips. I think so too. Indeed, you only need 1 second. Huaxia kid, you, are all Americans as talkative as you? Chen Guang raised his head and looked at him. Congratulations, you've succeeded in annoying me. This bro is really unlucky. Mr. Pierce, don't you feel that the air is turning cold? Bowman suddenly said in a genteel manner. Pierce didn't reply to him. On the other side, the referee had started the countdown for the match between Chen Guang and Daimon. 3. 2. Bai Ling spoke very quickly. The referee has started the countdown. The competition is about to begin. 1. Bang! This match was really fast, so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. It might not even be 1 second, but it could also be only 0.5 seconds. The moment the referee finished the countdown, the muscles in Chen Guang's left hand, which was holding onto the metal pillar to stabilize his body, and in his right hand, which was holding onto Daimon's, suddenly expanded and contracted. His feet subconsciously left the ground, and a terrifying force erupted from his arms. The pectoral muscles that he had just trained yesterday acted as the pivot of his arms, and they also erupted with terrifying force. The arrogant expression on Daimon's face was still stiff, but his entire body was already leaning to the right uncontrollably. His right hand was firmly pressed onto the table by Chen Guang, and he couldn't move at all. His mind was still in a daze. What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? There was a short period of silence in the huge abandoned factory. Everyone stared blankly at the 4 large projection screens, and their mouths were wide open, unable to speak for a long time. It was just like how Pierce and the others felt when they saw Chen Guang punch 1,088 kilograms with their own eyes yesterday. They thought they were blind. What the hell? This Huaxia guy had used his arm, which was as thick as a baby's, to fiercely press down Daimon. How did he do that? This didn't conform to scientific principles at all. The thickness of these two people's arms was completely disproportionate. Bowman shrugged. See, I told you. Daimon is going to be unlucky. Bai Ling stood at the side in a daze. She hadn't even had the time to announce the start of the competition, and it had already ended? She was about to cry. Let me explain it properly. Why? In Chen Guang's live stream, something unprecedented happened. The bullet screen actually went silent for a few seconds. However, after a short period of silence, rockets, gifts, and all kinds of 666666, invincible, and very expensive, were immediately followed by a frenzy of rockets and gifts. Congratulations to Brother Almighty for successfully King the sky. And so on. YouTube's live stream was not much different. A group of people thought they were blind. Don't tell me Demon is going easy on us. This was the first thought that popped up in the minds of many YouTube viewers. However, they immediately overturned their guesses because Daimon on the screen had already started to scream. My hand. Oh my God. My hand. Chen Guang let go of his hand. Daimon grabbed his right hand and screamed in pain. Beads of cold sweat shot out from his forehead and temples, and the bones in his right forearm appeared to be bent in a strange way. Yes, that's right. Chen Guang had exerted his strength too quickly and fiercely. At that moment, Daimon had tried his best to turn the situation around, but it was useless. He was still forcefully pressed down by Chen Guang. Of course, he didn't throw the match. He even used a strength that exceeded the endurance of his arm. As a result, his right forearm was directly fractured. However, it was useless. He was still defeated on the spot. It wasn't rare for a player's arm to be broken in an arm wrestling competition. However, in the past, it was always a player at Daimon's level who broke other people's wrists. After all, his arm bones were much thicker and stronger than ordinary people's. However, this time, Chen Guang used his Kirin arm to teach this guy an extremely memorable lesson. I've reminded you, buddy. I'm not easy to deal with. Chen Guang crossed his arms and stood on the other side of the table. He looked at Daimon coldly. Do you need me to compensate you for your medical expenses? The person in charge of the competition, Green, walked forward with a horrified expression. Mr. Chen, there's no need for that. The insurance is included in your registration fee. Daimon's injury is covered by the insurance. Chen Guang looked at Green and nodded. Then, he looked around. Is that so? Very good. Thank you. Next. According to the groups of the preliminaries, another brawny man had already won another preliminary and was about to compete with the winner between Chen Guang and Daimon. He shook his head like a rattle drum. I want to withdraw from the competition. Chen Guang's first two preliminary rounds of the right-handed category had ended in such a dramatic manner. However, it didn't matter. This was just the first step of his road to acting cool. There were still 4 more preliminary rounds for today. The final winner would enter the top 128 finals the next day. In addition, he still had 6 rounds of matches for the left-handed category. My dear audience, I believe you've seen it. I'm already incoherent. I don't even know how to describe what I'm feeling right now. I feel like I'm about to orgasm. After a brief moment of absent-mindedness, Bai Ling said loudly with a flushed face, it's unbelievable. I don't understand how he did it at all. Come, let's take a look at Chen Guang's arm. What kind of arm does it have to possess such terrifying and explosive power? Oh my God. Come, Mr. Chen, cooperate with me. Bai Ling's eyes lit up. She moved closer to Chen Guang, pulled up his sleeves, and asked Marco to point the camera at Chen Guang's deltoid. The sexy and hot Bai Ling stroked his shoulder emotionally. I really wish I was a doctor. I really want to see what's so unusual about his muscle fibers. My dear audience, do you think the same as me? Your anchor is so powerful. I don't know what you think, but if it were me, I would definitely start sending gifts like crazy. Oh, by the way, I can give you my sweet kiss now. The difference between a live webcast and a TV program was that the female host could also be more sexy and active. This foreign woman doesn't know how to behave. Damn it. Jiang Yage waved her little fist at the screen. How dare she take advantage of my Chen Guang? Jean Shiyue comforted her. Yage, don't be angry. Don't you see that Chen Guang is blushing and avoiding her? In a small forest courtyard near Yanjing, Wenwen, who had just finished her closed-door meditation, also stared at the computer screen. She didn't care about Bai Ling's flirting with Chen Guang. Instead, her pair of beautiful eyes stared at Chen Guang's arm in the camera. Even through the screen, Wenwen could see the terrible explosive power from this arm. She knew very well that Chen Guang didn't have internal strength. She couldn't help but think in her heart, could it be that I also made a mistake? This guy's hand, this bone, is going to defy the natural order. Chapter 701. The last time Wenwen met Chen Guang, she was shocked by his terrifying bone structure. However, time was tight and she had already passed the painting scroll to Chen Guang, so there was no point in asking too much. At that time, Wenwen only thought that regardless of whether Chen Guang's bone structure was good or bad, it would take at least a year or two for him to reach the standard of the painting scroll from an ordinary person. She did not need to worry too much about it. However, how long had it been? Although this guy still did not have inner force, his physical strength was so strong that it was intimidating. Even if Wenwen had her own unique skills and inner force, she was sure that in terms of physical strength, she would definitely be left behind by Chen Guang. Just the moment he broke the arm of the strong man in front of him showed his overwhelming strength. The absolute strength he displayed in that instant was at least half a ton. Wenwen secretly clicked her tongue. It seemed that compared to her, this guy was the real genius. Was he just buried because he came from an ordinary family? I told you, there's no need to worry about him. My dear, you're too much. All right, let's not look at him anymore. Let's get down to business. We have such an unlucky chief who only takes money but does nothing. He left us, the two of us, to live a carefree life abroad. Why do we have to worry about his safety? I'm not that kind. At Chen Guang's house in Wujing, Wu Miaowan was pointing at the monitor and cursing. Xin Qin returned to her chair and looked at Wu Miaowan. Little Miaowan, do you think that the wretched heavens are really that unfair? It's bad enough that we're in the same era as that demonic girl Wenwen, but why did we have to meet a beast like Daisy? Sometimes, I really wonder what it will be like when he gathers all the bones in his body and starts to cultivate the painting scroll. It's really scary to think about it. Wu Miaowan craned her neck and thought about it for a long time. Finally, she came to a conclusion. It's hard to say what the outcome will be, but based on my observation of him, if he's able to defeat the both of us, our asses will suffer. No matter how unhappy and tangled these two deputy bureau chief were in Wujing, Chen Guang was beaming with joy at this time. Sending Demon to the hospital right from the start made his path of advancement exceptionally smooth and magnanimous. Regardless of whether he was in the right-hand group or the left-hand group, people would be afraid of him the moment they saw him. No one would care about how unreasonable his head was and how sorry he was to the audience. In an arm wrestling competition, it was a competition of raw strength. There was no ambiguity. Unless it was an opponent of equal strength, there might be a need to pay attention to the state of play. But with Chen Guang's dominating strength that was enough to crush the competition from the beginning to the end, the others couldn't struggle at all. Even if they roared until their throats broke, it would be useless. Today was a day where the world's arm wrestling competition participants, the two major live streaming platforms, Bamboo and YouTube, and the ESPN channel's audience, had completely refreshed their worldview and outlook on life. Before the appearance of Chen Guang, human strength was often directly related to weight. After all, the more muscles one had, the stronger one was, and the stronger one's absolute strength would be. This was a positive correlation that was in line with scientific principles. Before today, this was basically the truth. Even if there were occasional discrepancies, it was not far from the truth. However, there had never been a person like Chen Guang who forcefully participated in a 105 kg and above competition with a weight of 75 kg. Among the contestants who fought against him, the lightest one was more than 110 kg, and there were even giant monsters that weighed 150 kg. But no matter who he encountered, the result was the same. Other than being knocked down with loud bangs, there was only an instant kill. It was simply unreasonable. Lying in the hospital, Demon, who was still persevering in watching the live stream, was also teary-eyed. Who would have thought that this small man's body was equipped with nuclear power? How did your bones and muscles grow? Are you a human or a machine? No, you should be an alien instead, right? The audience was gradually getting numb. Wife, come and see God. Mom, hurry up and see the Eastern God. If not for the fact that he doesn't have fangs, would have thought that he was a vampire. I have already called the North American clergy. I think it is necessary for them to use the Holy Cross to examine this Wuxia man to see if there is a demon living in his body. This is too strange. The above were the bullet screen comments in the YouTube live stream. The domestic bamboo platform was even crazier. Following the basic principle of being a loyal fan, Chen Guang's bamboo live stream was like an annual carnival. What could be more satisfying than watching one's idol act cool and trample on others? Of course, there were. Their idol was obviously so skinny that he looked like he was malnourished. But in terms of absolute strength, he crushed them mercilessly, causing those foreigners to be so scared that their faces turned pale, but there was nothing they could do. Brother All-Rounder is simply too beastly. I was not his fan at all in the past. I don't play games, race cars, play the piano, know nothing about darts, and have no interest in sharpening pencils. However, I am a fitness enthusiast. I have been working out for 4 to 5 years, but I have never seen anyone who can train his absolute strength to the point where his body does not have any obvious muscle expansion. Everyone, no matter what you think, I will first send a rocket to celebrate. To the previous poster, Bamboo used Buddha jumps over the wall. Are you an idiot sent by the enemy station? Oh right, then I will send 2 Buddha jumps over the wall. My slip of the tongue, everyone, please forgive me. Ren Chang's 3rd fan club's deputy leader, from now on, everyone can be a loyal fan. Ren Chong can go play. Deputy leader, it doesn't rhyme. Ren Chang's 3rd fan club's deputy leader, rhyme my ass. My wife asked me why I was kneeling on the ground watching the live stream and didn't have time to rhyme. Invisible dog food is the deadliest. Burn the deputy leader to death. Throughout the night, the gifts in Chen Guang's live stream did not stop. Just like the rockets from soy milk, Bamboo's Buddha jumps over the wall was simply a pile of gifts. As a live stream that had never used fake gifts before, Chen Guang's live stream could be considered a clean stream in the entire live stream industry. After all, even when the boss, Little Tsong, personally sent gifts to Chen Guang, he did not secretly change the data in the background to renege on the payment. Instead, he stuffed money into Chen Guang's wallet with real money. He was quite kind. It was a pity that there was a time difference between the two countries. By the second half of the night in China, the number of viewers in the live stream had dropped to 2 million. However, this was already the king of the midnight time slot and the giant of the live stream industry. During this period, there was a cyber police comrade who found Little Tsong and raised an objection to the sexy foreign beauties who appeared in Chen Guang's live stream from time to time. He requested that the live stream be banned. Little Tsong did not do anything else. He reported the matter to the person in charge of a mysterious department. The cyber police comrade, who was called a supervisor but was actually bored, immediately went to participate in re-employment training. During the competition, someone in the field suggested that Chen Guang should be tested for performance-enhancing drugs. However, this young man was soon knocked down by Chen Guang with one finger. He decided to shut his mouth. He was the fourth contestant in the 195-pound weight class, and he was knocked down with one finger. In a sense, performance-enhancing drugs could make people perform exceptionally well, but it was absolutely impossible to turn a stick of hemp into an iron rod. The strength that this guy possessed was indeed overwhelming. A whole day passed. When evening came in Detroit, Chen Guang advanced into the top 128 of the left-hand and right-hand groups without any suspense with his 12 instant kills. He led a group of people back to Pierce's club in high spirits. This time, he was followed by Bai Ling and Marco. Bowman had become Chen Guang's diehard fan. He followed behind Chen Guang in all kinds of ways to please him. In the end, he could not help but reveal his fox tail. "Leet, teach me. How on earth did you train to such terrifying strength?" Chen Guang shrugged. "Bowman, I am indeed willing to teach you, but you definitely can't do it." Bowman's chest drooped. "Impossible. Bowman, I can tell that you are a winner in life. You definitely can't understand the determination of a man like me who has been single for 20 years. This move of mine, in China, is called Qilan arm. Only a true god of misfortune can comprehend this god's skill in despair. Although you desire power, you have distracting thoughts in your heart. You should just give up on this heart." "I see." Bowman was extremely disappointed. The phrase, god of misfortune, really made him feel despair. He couldn't do it. On the other side, Bai Ling came up again. "Mr. Chen, as far as I know, you and Jean Shiyue are boyfriend and girlfriend, right? I have heard of the Qilan arm, but you don't understand. The Qilan arm is the pursuit and dream of every Chinese boy when they are young. You won't understand even if I tell you. Although you are Chinese, you grew up abroad. You don't understand the real Chinese young people. Hurry up and kick Marco back to China. We still have so many single men who are suffering. Bai Ling, you are so beautiful. Don't let foreigners take advantage of you." As Chen Guang teased, he chuckled to the camera, "Brothers, I've helped you guys fight for it. Everyone, give me more gifts." After saying that, he ran away. Pierce called him over and said that he wanted to introduce him to a few people. Marco, who was carrying the camera, could not understand Chinese. He was puzzled and asked Bai Ling, "What did he say just now?" Bai Ling blushed. "Nothing, Marco. I want to go to China soon to see my ancestral home. I will go with you." Marco did not know that a crisis was coming. "No need. I will go back alone." Chen Guang casually said hello to the group of people that Pierce brought. Then, he did not waste any time. He used the excuse of reading a script to go back to the villa alone. In fact, his mind was immersed in the Holy Grail. The whole day was not in vain. The audience of the two major live broadcast platforms in ESPN, at least millions of people, had witnessed his great achievement at the competition. Although he had not won the championship yet, the faith value of the Qilan arm had already soared from the original 18,000 to 25,000. If there were no accidents, after tomorrow, the Qilan arm would smoothly be maxed out. If he went back and played the piano, the output of the piano world's faith value would immediately soar. This rhythm was simply perfect. Chapter 702. Chen Guang didn't say anything all night. In China, many people went to work early the next morning with dark circles under their eyes. Their lives were also hard. The next morning, Chen Guang met an old acquaintance when he arrived at the race venue. It was the son of Sonic, Frant, who he hadn't dealt with for a long time. He was the American who gave him a big gift in the Xiangjiang car race. This guy and his father, Sonic Shaq's car modification factory, was also in Detroit. As the first king of racing and the first person in history to win the championship of a car race, Shaq was also a hero in Detroit. Like father, like son. Frant inherited his father's talent well. He also had a high status in Detroit and had a good relationship with many gangsters. Shaq's car modification factory represented the highest level of car modification in North America and was sought after by famous people who loved cars. Originally, Frant was not in Detroit these days, but yesterday he saw Chen Guang's appearance on ESPN and remembered the video he had seen before. He knew that the Xiangjiang masked car god was the Chinese internet celebrity Chen Guang. Without saying anything, he put down what he was doing and rushed back to Detroit overnight just to see his idol. Mr. Chen? Masked car god? Frant was a little nervous when he saw Chen Guang again. So far, he still couldn't forget that night when Chen Guang was like a god. In the field of racing, he was so powerful that others didn't even have the qualification to look up to his back. When he was wearing the V Special Agent Team mask, he was a man of few words, cold and merciless. When he faced challenges from others, he would silently suppress them with his overwhelming strength that could make others look up to him in awe. Although his true face was finally exposed on the internet and many people in the racing world saw it, he seemed to have no intention of officially entering the underground racing world. Instead, he was immersed in other things. He even almost forgot the fact that he was the car god of this generation. He seemed to have no interest in racing at all. This was a great blow to people like Frant or Tommy Diesel. God was so unfair and cruel. He let a peerless genius like Chen Guang appear in front of the racing world with an irresistible momentum, and then left without hesitation. He only left a record that could not be surpassed by future generations. He pushed the technical level of racing to unprecedented heights. Perhaps it would take at least decades for future generations to advance the technology to touch his back. He was so strong that people only wanted to worship him as a god. But he turned around and disappeared into the crowd. When he reappeared, he had become the champion of the World Darts Championship, a piano master, a handicraft artist, or an esports player. He no longer seemed to have any interest in racing. Just imagining it made the 9 car kings and son of Sonic, who had been defeated by him, feel sad from the bottom of their hearts. Now, seeing him again, even though he was not wearing a mask and was talking and laughing with others, Frant still felt nervous and frightened from the bottom of his heart, and when he took the initiative to speak to him, his voice trembled. Looking at the tall young man who suddenly came up to him, Chen Guang was stunned. "Hello, may I ask who you are?" He thought to himself, could it be a fan I mixed in when I was racing in Xiangjiang? Taking a closer look, the thread of faith value floating over the other person's forehead was indeed very thick. It was one of his people. Frant finally determined that he did not recognize the wrong person and was overjoyed. "It's me." Chen Guang secretly rolled his eyes. "Who the hell knows who you are?" Oh, you are that, who's that?" "Frant, have you forgotten? We had a car race in Xiangjiang, and you won my Ford." This time, Chen Guang finally remembered who the other person was. "It's you. Long time no see, long time no see. Nice to meet you." He suddenly became much more enthusiastic. After all, the other person was the boy who gave him money and had made a lot of contributions to him. Frant was also very happy. "Mr. Chen, do you really remember me?" Chen Guang nodded. "Of course, I also know that you are very good at modifying cars. Your car is full of power, which left a deep impression on me. However, your driving level can't keep up with the power of your car and can't exert its true ability. Do you know each other?" At this time, Pierce came up. He knew Frant. "Of course, Mr. Pierce, I am a fan of Mr. Chen," Frant said without hesitation. On the other side, Chen Guang had to prepare for the game and did not continue to stay here to chat with the two. However, Bai Ling hurriedly came up to interview Frant. In front of the camera, Frant was not stingy with his words of praise, praising Chen Guang's driving skills as unparalleled on Earth and rare in the sky. When Bai Ling chased after him again, Frant and Pierce, the two fellow sufferers, together, were equally depressed. One was distressed that Chen Guang did not take his own driving skills seriously, and the other was distressed that Chen Guang was unwilling to go into the ring even if he was beaten to death. They both felt that this guy had a lot of money in his hands, but he was wasting it. After a whole day of crushing yesterday, even if he entered the top 128 today, no one dared to look down on Chen Guang. On the contrary, his opponents, even if they were in the top 16 last year, were all ashen. For example, Devon, the former dominator of wrist strength, as Chen Guang's opponent in the first round of the finals today, had even shouted the slogan, "Fight for Dignity." Although Devon was no longer as dominant as he used to be in recent years as he grew older, he was still a strong contender for the top 8. Seeing him declare his position like this, everyone could not help but sigh. However, the arena did not believe in tears and dignity. Only strength could win the respect of the world. Unlike yesterday, this time, everyone's attention was on Chen Guang at the beginning, and some people had even secretly bet on whether anyone could last 2 seconds in his hands. As for the problem of body size, who cared? No matter where Chen Guang went, even if his match had not started, one of the 4 big screens in the arena was always focused on him, making his every move particularly eye-catching. "Bro, let's not film him when he goes to the toilet, okay?" "No, Mr. Chen, everyone wants to see what's so special about a strong person like you. Your posture when you go to the toilet must be unusual." The beautiful staff member sent by the competition organizer looked at Chen Guang eagerly. Her eyes were really bright. Chen Guang wanted to stab her to death with a pile driver, but in the end, he endured it. He pointed to the door of the men's room and said, "Please go out first, I can't pee with you here." "No. Our TV show is very broad, this is not against the rules. There are really many friends who asked me. F***ck off." In fact, at this time, the female staff member was not the only one who was very curious about Chen Guang. There were too many people. It was said that a special department in the United States had tried to communicate with Huaxia, hoping to keep Chen Guang in the United States. The two sides would work together to study the secrets in Chen Guang's body. What he showed was definitely beyond the current genetic level of human beings. This special department in the United States soon received a reply from the senior leader of Huaxia. It was said that the bald Mr. Jiang personally recorded it and specially emphasized that the senior leader must listen to it in person. F***ck your mother, in your dreams. If you dare to touch Chen Guang, we will start a war. Try it if you don't believe me. Mr. Jiang's reply was concise, and clear. He was so annoyed by this group of Americans that he laughed. You are a group of frogs at the bottom of a well. You have never seen powerful people. What is Chen Guang? He is just strong. If you see the powerful internal force experts in our country, won't you be so arrogant? Besides, no one can touch Chen Guang. Now, through Chen Guang, we have finally roped in the Wen family, which is extremely important among the internal force experts. How can you do such a thing? In fact, there were some different opinions about the overly strong physical strength that Chen Guang had shown so far, but they did not think that the problem was at the genetic level. They only believed that it must be the Wen family's leader who gave Chen Guang some kind of shady help, which made this kid become a phoenix. What did this Huaxia leader say? The director of the Special Department of the United States, who did not understand Chinese, looked at his subordinate in confusion. He seems to be very emotional. The subordinate who was responsible for the translation next to him was embarrassed. How could he translate it? Snow, what did he say? Well, I'll give you 3 seconds to translate it for me, or you can get out of here. First of all, he asked about your family. Well, Huaxia is indeed a country of etiquette. In fact, even I feel that my request is too much. After all, Chen Guang is a Huaxia citizen. Please express my gratitude to Mr. Jiang for his condolences. Oh, okay, but he refused our proposal. He thinks our idea is impractical. Snow was in a cold sweat. He chose his words carefully and translated carefully. After a brief pondering, the bureau chief nodded his head. I've underestimated the problem. We have too little information on Chen Guang. I heard that there is a very special group of people in Huaxia. These people have mastered very mysterious Eastern power and are very powerful. According to the small amount of information we have obtained in the past, Qin Guang also has some connections with those special people. If Qin Guang's power comes from those mysterious people, it is indeed not something we can control. Then, what did Mr. Jiang say? He didn't say anything else. He just further emphasized that he doesn't want us to have any ideas about Qin Guang. Okay, Snow, you can leave now. It's good that you know about this. That's all. The director gave an order and fell into deep thought again. He turned his head and looked at Qin Guang, who was confronting Devon on the big screen, very melancholy. Chapter 703. Dear viewers, Qin Guang is now facing the world champion Devon from 5 years ago. He was once known as the man with the strongest right arm in the world. What kind of fire will erupt when the two collide? Sigh, the match is over. Bai Ling felt so tired. She had never been so tired since she became a host for YouTube. This match was really not easy to commentate. I wanted to exaggerate a little and brag about your opponent to create a sense of anticipation for your audience, but you win so quickly every time. How am I supposed to commentate? I can't go on anymore. Qin Guang shook hands with Devon, then turned to Bai Ling and said, Bai Ling, if I were you, I wouldn't cripple this god. Impossible. I don't believe you can win so easily all the way to the finals. Especially Dennis' left arm and Alexei's right arm, they are also very strong. I went back yesterday and did a lot of preparation work. I don't believe it, I really don't believe it. Do whatever you want, as long as you're happy. Qin Guang gave this high-spirited YouTube staff 32 thumbs up for her professionalism. He only knew one thing, and that was that his back and waist injuries had only recovered 80% to 90% yesterday. Today was his full recovery. I can only apologize to Dennis and Alexei. You guys are indeed very strong, and you guys have shed a lot of sweat and tears for this tournament. But for the sake of this pair of Qilin arms, I've set off over 20 million brass fireworks in the world within the cup. The price I have paid is countless times more than yours. So, I have to win. And I will win super easily. Bang! Piddleman knelt. Bang! Bowen knelt. Bang! Babiv knelt. Bang! Nicola knelt. Bang! Alexei knelt as well. From the beginning to the end, he did not give Bai Ling a chance to commentate. He climbed to the top step by step in a straightforward manner. When he truly stood at the top of the world of wrist strength, many people felt like they were in a dream. On one hand, his physique was inconceivable, but on the other hand, the process of his victory was so clean and efficient that it was indisputable. The strongest Huaxia man in history. No, he is the strongest man in history. I really want to know how he trains. If I had the same body type as him, I might not even be able to break his fingers. Didn't someone try it yesterday? He was pushed down by a single finger. I've really fallen in love with this Chinese man. Does anyone have his contact information? I'm going to vote for him as the man women want to sleep with the most this year. Similar comments came one after another in YouTube's live broadcast room, ESPN's forum, Must Die, Twitter, and INS comment section. This was the first time that Qin Guang had participated in an overseas competition. Although it wasn't an influential competition, it still brought him considerable influence on the international stage. His rise in popularity was even more ferocious than Dennis in the previous competitions. There were many factors that contributed to this result. First of all, he was the first Chinese person to display such dominating strength in this kind of competition. Secondly, he participated in the super heavyweight competition with an even slimmer body and crushed his way up. This was also an unprecedented situation. Furthermore, his personal achievements did not stop at arm wrestling. When his past achievements were dug out one by one, the many skills he had mastered were piled up together, bringing about a qualitative change in quantity. Just as Chen Guang had once pursued, no matter what you liked, the old man was good at everything, and he was the best at everything. There would always be one that could charm you. I not only have quality, but I also have quantity. After Chen Guang crushed Alexei in the right arm competition, he moved on to the left arm competition and defeated Dennis, the strongest wrist strength on earth. His journey in the world arm wrestling competition had officially come to an end. Along with the endless flow of gifts on the screen, Chen Guang walked to the podium step by step. The second and third places with him were all much taller and stronger than him, making him stand out from the crowd. Bai Ling looked very depressed. The situation that she dreamed of after a stalemate and a difficult victory did not appear until the end. This guy was simply the nemesis of the program effect. He did not play according to the routine. Every time, he would lift his two legs in the air and then exert force with both hands. The opponent would immediately be defeated without a chance to struggle. Although his movements were not elegant, they were extremely efficient. Bai Ling also understood that his weight disadvantage was too great. If he wanted to win the competition, he had to do this. It was destined that he could not go easy on his opponent. Otherwise, if his opponent took advantage of his weight advantage and directly knocked him to the ground, who could he blame if he failed miserably? I understand the logic, but I feel terrible. Come on, Bai Ling, don't be depressed. I have to go. I will have many similar events in the future. This won't be the last time I work with YouTube. If there's a chance in the future, you can continue to stream my matches. Sooner or later, I'll give you a match that you'll be satisfied with. Chen Guang took the 2 championship bonus checks from Mr. Green and turned his head to Bai Ling with a smile. $2 million was not a lot for him, but who would say no to money? Of course, he accepted it. In addition to the competition bonus, he had received more than 1.5 million renminbi in gifts on Bamboo Live broadcast platform in the past 2 days. On the other hand, YouTube had directly received 1.2 million renminbi as a live broadcast copyright fee, and after splitting the gifts, he had received about 400,000 renminbi in cash. In just these 2 days, he suddenly came up with the idea to participate in the international arm wrestling competition. Without making a sound, he easily earned close to 15 million in cash. Tian Guang's manager's participation in this matter was simply too low. Yu Hong and the rest simply transferred the money into Chen Guang's personal account without worrying about Tang Xiaokai's opinion. Therefore, the world was so unfair. When he was poor, even if he wanted to earn tens of millions a month, he had to rack his brains. But once a person reached that special level and status, money seemed to no longer be money, but became a dispensable number. The more famous he was, the easier it was to make money. Money came easily, and he could use money to earn more fame. This was a snowball process. Unless the snowball exploded or rolled in the wrong direction into the sea, he and his Tianguang brokerage would not collapse. For example, this time, in addition to money, he had attracted more than 400,000 fans in Bamboo Live broadcast room in the past 2 days. After all, he rarely did late-night slots, and rarely did outdoor fitness live broadcasts. This time, he appeared in the top world competition in the fitness field, and he won the championship with a crushing victory. In addition to the characteristics of late-night slots, he also had to thank Bai Ling and other foreign girls who appeared in the live broadcast from time to time to sell their bodies, which attracted a lot of new viewers for his personal live broadcast room. Up to now, his personal live broadcast room had a total of 3.7 million fans. Once again, his fans were all living people. Just like that, he relied on unconventional sword moves to unknowingly become the well-deserved #1 online anchor in the country. In addition, under the operation of Tianguang Brokerage's staff, his personal Weibo followed up on his competition situation at any time, and there were many updates related to the competition. Combined with the recent popularity of the women movie incident, it did not matter if others came to scold him, to criticize him, or even to advertise under his personal Weibo. They were all customers, and he clicked follow before leaving. The number of his personal Weibo fans increased by another 2 million, officially crossing the 20 million mark and reaching 21 million. Regardless of whether others were convinced or not, his value as a celebrity had climbed up a notch, which meant that it would be easier for him to make money in the future. Now that Chen Guang was gradually attracting more and more attention, there would naturally be people who hoped that he would be unlucky. For example, when Chen Guang invested in women, there were many people who hoped that he would fail and suffer a loss in the box office. There were many people waiting to see him make a fool of himself, but only Chen Guang and Yang Shi knew that it would not fail. There wasn't a problem with the script, and the director was Big Beard Deng. The main cast's acting skills were also excellent. If this film wanted to fail, the only risk was that it wouldn't be able to be screened. But for Chen Guang, who had reached the pinnacle of the universe, it was practically impossible. Women was not anti-human, so how could it not be released? Besides, there were also Jiang Yage and Jin Shiyue among the main cast and investors. It was guaranteed to be profitable, and if it was not profitable, it would be his fault. But whether it was money or fame, these were not what he cared about the most. He only cared about the faith points. Chen Guang felt the faith points flying in from all over the world, and then he sank his mind into the cup. He found that the world of the Kirin arm had been directly maxed out as he had expected, reaching a daily production of 44,466 units. Only then did he truly feel a sense of fullness in his heart like never before. After a period of unremitting efforts, Chen Guang had now maxed out the production of the pencil sharpener, knife tower, darts, and world of the Kirin arm to 44,466 units. In addition to the racing god training ground, which was close to 26,000, the piano world, which was close to 4,000, the pile driver world, and the 29,000 additional faith points from the Sea of Time. In addition to the 1,094 provided by his only fanatic, Xue Lin, his daily production of faith points had increased from just over 100,000 to 285,000. This meant that as long as he was willing, and as long as he was not afraid of courting death, he could go through a beggar's special training in 2.5 days. Holding the cup tightly, Chen Guang felt very comforted. His hard work did not disappoint him. Oh, right, I have to book a plane ticket quickly so that I can sit on the same plane as Sun Xiaoxuan tomorrow. Chen Guang took out his phone and called Fang Tianyu. As a former employee of the Tang Jia Foundation and a fierce member of the marketing department, booking plane tickets was Fang Tianyu's specialty. After the call, Chen Guang opened WeChat and clicked on the class group chat. On one hand, he wanted to brag to Shaolin, Bai Nyangzi, and Xiong'er. On the other hand, it was time to reply to Sun Xiaoxuan. He would not look for her directly today. Tomorrow, when it was almost time, he would directly take a car to her school, meet her, and then go to the airport together. Chapter 704. Mr. Chen, where are you going? Can I give you a ride? Frant had been waiting for a chance to lick his boots. If he could trick the racing god into driving himself, how happy would that be? Sitting in the front passenger seat and witnessing his skills with one's own eyes was the dream of every car lover in the world. Therefore, people sometimes had similarities, no matter if they were noble or ordinary. In terms of social status, Ruffy and Frant were similar. Maybe Ruffy was higher, but when it came to racing, Ruffy could only be regarded as a middle-level backbone in the Chinese racing world, while Frant was almost at the top of the world. In the beginning, Ruffy was also hot-headed in order to get into Chen Guang's car. Now it was Frant, the heir of the racing king, who was also at the top of the pyramid of the underground racing world, wanted to get into Chen Guang's car with the same feelings as Ruffy. They were both brainless fans looking at a god. Chen Guang looked at the map. It would take about an hour to drive from here to Sun Xiaoxuan's school. The distance was a bit far. Why not take Frant's car? Pierce was still reluctant to part with Chen Guang, but it was futile. His Qilin arm's faith was already maxed out. Although he could earn money by punching, it was a waste of time and effort. Furthermore, he didn't receive any faith, so Chen Guang wasn't interested in it. Right, not being able to make you a professional boxer must be the biggest regret of my life. Pierce was very emotional as he pulled on Chen Guang's clothes. Chen Guang tried to struggle. Mr. Pierce, I understand your feelings, but this is really not possible in the short term. How about this? I promise you, if I really want to be a professional boxer in the future, I will definitely find you, not anyone else, okay? Pierce reluctantly let go of his hand. Okay. Then. Goodbye? Chen Guang was afraid of being pestered by this guy again, so he simply turned around and got into Fran's car. Let's go to the Detroit Institute of Technology. Why is there a steering wheel in front of me? Is this the driver's seat? Chen Guang looked at Fran, who was sitting in the front passenger seat with a smug face. Well, this guy was vicious. He wanted to learn the technique without paying the tuition fee, so he sat in the front passenger seat and waited for Chen Guang to take the bait. Well, it made no difference whether he drove or Frank drove, and if he got his license checked he could just blame it on Frank. As for the tuition fee, forget it. The old man is now rich and willful. He doesn't need this little bit of money from you, so I'll let you take advantage of it. Moreover, Chen Guang also knew that Fran wouldn't really learn anything. Off you go. Hey, wait, before Pierce finished his words, Chen Guang had already started the car and ran away. Seeing the car quickly disappear at the intersection, Pierce stomped his feet angrily. It runs really fast. Bowman came up from the side and comforted him. Don't be sad, Mr. Pierce. In fact, I really understand him. If I had such terrible strength, I would also feel that competing with others is very boring. I understand the reason, but I just can't accept it. Pierce was still beating his chest and stamping his feet. He was not the only one who felt sorry for himself. Bai Ling also looked at Marco with a blank face and pointed to her full chest. Most of her cleavage was exposed, and it looked very attractive. She finally realized that she had been flirting in front of Chen Guang for 2 whole days. Apart from a lustful look from time to time, this guy did not show any extra emotions to her from beginning to end. This doesn't make sense. Am I not beautiful enough? Marco, have I become uglier recently? Bai Ling asked. The photographer Marco shook his head. Probably not. Then why is he doing this? I don't know. Sigh. Bai Ling felt a little wronged. She had been following behind this guy for 2 days. Although she did not talk much with him, it was undeniable that this guy could really make money. A proper rich husband was hard to find. Once she got close to him, she could have as many luxuries as she wanted in this life. Unfortunately, it was not that Bai Ling did not work hard, but that the enemy was too cunning. Mr. Chen, why did you reject Mr. Pierce so decisively? If you are interested, it is not difficult to become a world-class boxing champion, right? Frante tried to find something to say while using his phone to search for directions to the Detroit Institute of Technology. At the same time, his eyes were busy looking at Chen Guang's movements when he was driving, hoping to secretly learn some techniques. He thought to himself that it was really enjoyable. Even if it was an ordinary daily drive, Mr. Chen's every move was full of extremely smooth feeling. It was simply art. Forget it. What's the point of boxing? It's too boring. Compared to this, I might as well participate in the WRC rally. At least I can earn some faith. Anyway, I have no interest in boxing at all. Chen Guang almost spilled the beans. On the other side, Frante immediately fell into ecstasy. Oh my God. Mr. Chen, are you going to participate in the WRC? Very good. Although the intensity of the rally is not as good as our underground racing, there is no doubt that the latest technologies developed by major companies are generally first put into practice in the major rallies. Especially the WRC, it is a gathering of talents. Whether it is the cars or the drivers, they can be regarded as the best. Of course, compared to you, those drivers are as immature as babies. If you are willing to participate, you will definitely be able to defeat everyone like in the arm wrestling competition these 2 days. Who said that Chinese people like to flatter others, while foreigners were upright and plain-spoken? If foreigners didn't flatter you, it was because you weren't good enough to convince them. Look at Fronte, how smooth was his flattery. Chen Guang was satisfied and gave him a silent thumbs up. That's right. Although there is no doubt about your skills, your current reputation is still stuck in our underground racing circle. If you want to obtain more global recognition, it is indeed necessary to show convincing results in such a large-scale competition. How about this? My friend is the person in charge of the Lania team, and I have a bit of shares in the Lania team. If you want to participate, I can help you contact the Lania team at any time and let you become their contracted driver. The Lania team that Fronte mentioned was something that Chen Guang had heard of many times when he watched the competition on the sports channel. It was considered a tyrannical top rally team. In recent years, they had won many championships in large and small competitions. They were the standard of the industry's powerhouse. Is that so? Then I can participate in the WRC right away? That's not bad. Chen Guang was overjoyed. It was easy to get things done with more acquaintances. Unexpectedly, Fronte shook his head awkwardly. According to the rules of the FIA, the WRC competition is not purely based on the team's results. Even if Mr. Chen becomes a driver for Lanyu, I'm afraid you will have to register first and start from a small competition to slowly accumulate points. When your points reach the standard, then you can participate in next year's WRC. Chen Guang waved his hand. Alright, you don't have to say any more. We'll talk about this later. Damn, it's so troublesome to be a backdoor entrant. Next year my ass. The Racing God training grounds faith points are already quite high. It's not worth playing with the FIA's ridiculous rules for a year. I'm not that bored. If you're not happy, I'll organize my own competition, alright? I'll have another Racing God Throne challenge, alright? You're making me angry. I'm not playing with you. After coming to Detroit for 2 or 3 days, Chen Guang had not properly observed the city. Today, he was driving on the road, and he could finally calm down and look around. The city of Detroit enjoyed a reputation above its own level in Huaxia. On one hand, it was because the city had a very famous NBA team, the Detroit Pistons. On the other hand, it was because of the city's special position in history. It was known as the City of Cars. Due to the changes in the world's overall economic environment, the city had gradually become desolate and even went bankrupt 2 years ago. But once upon a time, Detroit represented the pinnacle of the entire North American and even the world's automobile industry. Even in China, far away, there were countless people who yearned for this city. But yellow flowers will eventually wither, and banquets will eventually disperse. Today's Detroit looked exceptionally desolate. The city seemed to have not recovered from the heavy blow of bankruptcy. It was like an old man with a serious illness. The spacious road that used to be filled with all kinds of heavy trucks was now only being driven by Chen Guang and Fronte's modified off-road vehicle that was extremely powerful. The roadside was even more sparsely populated. The car drove for a long time without seeing a single person walking on the road. Fronte enthusiastically acted as a tour guide. Mr. Chen, this used to be a general assembly workshop, but now they have abandoned the production base here and transferred more assembly work to Southeast Asia and China. This is the Buick workshop. This is, after a long time, the two drove out of the city and went straight to the town where the Detroit Polytechnic University was located. It looked even more desolate outside. The sunset at dusk shone down, slanting on the spacious but empty 8-lane road. The shadows of the car were long, making it look even more desolate. As a Chinese with a large population, Chen Guang was really uncomfortable with this situation. He teased Fronte. Fronte, your hometown is really desolate. Those who know would think I came to the United States, and those who don't know would think I went to the countryside of China. Fronte felt embarrassed. If it wasn't Chen Guang who said this, he would probably be furious. He really didn't give him any face. But on second thought, he was a little frustrated. Yes, but when it gets dark, it will become a little livelier. That's pretty good. Do Americans like to go out at night? Franté was even more embarrassed. No, it's just that at night, many people will come out to do some transactions that are not convenient to see the light. For example, drugs, bitches, or something else. The security situation in Detroit is actually very bad. You know, it's much easier to get a gun in North America than in China. It's full of gangs. Sigh, actually, I'm the same. Franté was very disappointed. He always felt that it was a very shameful thing to talk about his hometown in front of the god of cars, but it was the truth. Chapter 705. Chen Guang sensed the change in his mood and patted him on the shoulder. Franté, don't worry about this. It's just work. You don't look like a bad person. I understand you. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Right, is the security in the town near the Polytechnic University okay? Chen Guang suddenly thought of this and asked. Neil is okay. These people rarely move around there. The Polytechnic University is also a very well-known institution. The security there is not bad. Chen Guang said casually, don't talk nonsense. I saw the news from the United States on our country's global network. There are shootings on the streets every day. If you're not careful, you'll be shot while you're walking. There's no such thing as a safe place. It's a bit terrible. Recently, there have been a lot of extremists who have been restless. Franté couldn't beat Chen Guang in an argument. But 5 minutes later, Chen Guang regretted it. Franté received an urgent notification on his phone. Gunshots are suspected to be coming from the Detroit Polytechnic University in Neil. Citizens in the nearby area, please take cover and protect yourselves. Franrant had scarcely uttered the first, when the second followed. The shooting has caused 3 injuries and 1 death. There are 2 criminals, and more than 10 hostages are currently being held. After the second message was read, the third message came. The cause of the incident is suspected to be a potential extremist who is suffering from academic difficulties and is planning to retaliate against the university. This is a long-planned terrorist action. The relevant intelligence personnel of the FBI believe that there is almost no possibility of successful negotiations. The fourth message that followed made Chen Guang completely explode. 1 hostage has been killed. Of the 11 hostages still being held, 6 are Americans, 3 are Canadians, 1 is British, and 1 is a Chinese girl. They are now in a very dangerous situation. Chen Guang wished that he could give himself a slap. Damn it. I give up on my jinx. He could only pray in his heart that it was not Sun Xiaoxuan. She was going back to China tomorrow. Don't make such a big mess. Franté, do you have photos and information on the hostages? Chen Guang frantically stepped on the accelerator and turned his head to ask Franté. Franté squinted at the phone. Mr. Chen, I can't see it clearly. The camera is too far away, so it's very blurry. Why don't we go back? The town of Neil isn't very safe right now. Chen Guang shook his head. I'm afraid not. I don't have a good feeling. I have to go and take a look. After waiting for 2 or 3 minutes, Franrant finally received a new notification on his phone. The FBI's intelligence organization reacted quickly and quickly confirmed the identities of the 2 criminals. In the United States, where there had been 74 school shootings in 2 years, their emergency intelligence agency had been thoroughly tempered. Their professionalism was extremely high, and they were extremely efficient. Oh no, they are indeed 2 potential extremists. It is likely that they have been planning this operation since 2 months ago. Now they have all the hostages in the gymnasium. If I'm not wrong, they have also planted bombs in the gymnasium. Franté said dejectedly after reading the relevant information. A normal person's phone definitely wouldn't receive such detailed information. Most people would just be told to hide at home and not go out. However, the Shack family was prominent in Detroit and had a lot of influence in the political world. These important information would usually be sent to the phones of prominent people. This was democracy in the United States. Have the hostages' information been sent over yet? Chen Guang asked anxiously. Franté shook his head. No, but Mr. Chen, we really can't go any further. According to the intelligence, the two people have a very strong tendency to self-destruct. In order to stop the police and the FBI, the other party most likely planted bombs near the intersection in and out of Neil. There's only one road, so maybe the bomb is right in front of us and will explode at any time. Stop the car, I beg you. Chen Guang's hand that was gripping the steering wheel also trembled. He had long felt that the United States was very scary. Today, he saw that it was indeed a well-deserved reputation. Two random terrorists actually had such high standards. How could they let people live happily? God, please don't let it be Sun Xiaoxuan. Franté, if you're afraid, you can get out of the car, but I really can't go back now. Chen Guang still didn't slow down and continued to sprint forward. Franté looked at Chen Guang in despair. He didn't understand what was going on with the racing god. Why? I'm not a coward, but I can't die in vain. My friend is at the Detroit Institute of Technology. She's Chinese. Girl, do you understand? The hostage is very likely to be a very important friend of mine. I have a pair of hands covered in blood. I've killed many more people than those two terrorists. I have the ability to save her, so I have to go. Do you understand? Chen Guang's eyes stared straight ahead. On both sides of the wide road, the trees were flying past. The bright xenon lamps were sniped by the lenses, turning into two beams of light that stabbed into the distance like two swords. At this time, Chen Guang, sitting in the car, was like a swordsman traveling the world with a sword. As for Franté, who was trying to dissuade him, he looked like a trembling follower holding a sword. But there's more than one Chinese girl in the Polytechnic University. She may not be your friend, right? So I asked you for the hostage's information. Even if the hostage may not be my friend, I think I should go to her side at this time. Franté looked at Chen Guang's determined eyes. Then I'll call my friend in the FBI. Okay, thanks. 3 minutes later, Franté finally dug out the information of the hostages after a series of persuasion and threats. Mr. Chen, the hostage's name is Xiaosun Sun. Chen Guang's eyes widened. After about 5 seconds of silence, 3 earth-shattering words came out of his mouth. F***CK. What else could he say other than saying 3 hellflame golden-armored silver-haired celestial hound? Was there any situation in this world that could be more unlucky and magical than this? There were so many students and teachers in the huge Detroit Polytechnic University, but there just had to be a Chinese girl taken hostage, and it just had to be Sun Xiaoxuan. This kind of thing was basically like walking on the street and accidentally touching your trouser pocket, only to find that there were still 2 coins hidden in the middle of your trouser pocket last year. Then, you casually bought a lottery ticket to calm yourself down, only to end up winning 5 million. Well, if it was a blessing, it wasn't a curse. If it was a curse, it couldn't be avoided. Perhaps Sun Xiaoxuan was fated to have this calamity. Chen Zhao was also in Detroit today, and he was on his way to Neil. This should be the solution to this calamity in her life, the only one who could escape first in the great divination number. Pinching the satchel next to him, the heavenly Holy Grail was still lying inside. Chen Guang felt a little more at ease. Last time, when he was still weak, with the help of the heavenly Holy Grail and Azure, he forcibly rescued Wu Tong from a top assassin like Shizhou. Today, he only had to deal with 2 terrifying young men who played with bombs. His current strength was also not what it used to be, and he had many tricks up his sleeves. There was absolutely no possibility of escape or retreat. As a man, he had to bite the bullet and face it head-on. The next second, Chen Guang stepped on the brake again and slowly stopped the car by the side of the road. He turned his head and said to Frant, get out of the car. Get out of the car, Frante. I really have to go this time. I'll borrow your car. If you break it, I'll pay you double. Frant was a little hesitant. He wanted to follow Chen Guang, but his will wasn't strong enough. Mr. Chen, I told you to get out of the car. Do you think I'm joking with you? I don't have much time to waste with you. Get out. Chen Guang suddenly became angry. He understood Frant's hesitation, but it didn't mean that he had time for him to waste like this. On the other side, Sun Xiaoxuan was being held hostage by someone else. He didn't have the time to play with Sun Xiaoxuan's memories like in American TV series and Japanese manga. After that, he finally made up his mind to go out and save the world. Besides, I'm the superhero who's going to save the world. I don't need you. Of course, Chen Guang didn't blame Frant. After all, he and Chen Guang were just ordinary friends. They didn't have that kind of friendship. Frant had no obligation and need to accompany Chen Guang to take risks. Even if he didn't get out of the car now, he would definitely mention it again after driving for a while. It was better to just give it now, so he didn't owe him anything. Hearing Chen Guang's sudden shout, Frant's mind suddenly went blank. He quickly opened the door and jumped out. Chen Guang looked at his back and said loudly, "Anyway, thank you, Frant." At the same time, the engine made a crazy roar again, and the off-road vehicle rushed forward with burning tires. Looking at the off-road vehicle that was quickly getting further and further away, Frant's heart was extremely complicated. There was some relief, some regret, but most of it hid a lingering joy. Of course, he also knew very well that it was this joy that doomed him and Chen Guang to become real friends. He was just a passerby compared to the god of racing. Sun Xiaoxuan curled up her body and hid in the crowd. She was relatively small, and compared to the other hostages, she was petite and inconspicuous. Her mind was in a mess. She kept replaying the scene where the man was shot in the back and fell to the ground, howling in pain. After struggling for a long time, there was no more movement. Her ears were buzzing, and she didn't know if the gunshot was still in her ears or if she was hallucinating. Her face was covered with cold sweat, and her heart had never been beating so fast. If she hadn't seen it with her own eyes, she might not have understood how fragile human life was. Such a fresh human life was gone with a single shot. The blonde girl next to Sun Xiaoxuan kept sobbing in a low voice. It was very difficult for her to bear it, and she wanted to stuff her hand into her mouth, but her shoulders and nose were still twitching uncontrollably. The girl didn't know the hostage who tried to escape at first but was shot dead. She just lost control of her emotions because of excessive fear. Compared to this girl, although Sun Xiaoxuan was also afraid, she did a much better job. No matter how fast her heart beat, or how much sweat flowed down her face, she didn't make a sound. She hid in the crowd like a statue and became inconspicuous. Sun Xiaoxuan kept telling herself, "I can't die, I can't die." Chapter 706. Sun Xiaoxuan, who had read some school shooting and terrorist attack files before going abroad, knew very well that the criminals in front of them were the scariest kind of people. They were scarier than terrorists who only asked for money or some kind of exchange. They didn't ask for anything, they just wanted to take revenge on the world. They hadn't made a move yet, but it didn't mean that they would let everyone here go. They were just waiting for more people to know about this, waiting for more and more reports and onlookers, as well as the police and the FBI. They wanted to make things more sensational, and finally destroy everything in front of them in front of the eyes of the most people, including themselves and the hostages. Then, the group of people was probably just struggling at death's door. Perhaps there was no chance of survival. Sun Xiaoxuan sometimes seemed very weak, but it didn't mean that she really didn't have a mind of her own. She was a good class monitor during her 3 years in college, managed the class affairs in an orderly manner, and handled the relationship between her classmates flawlessly. At the same time, she didn't fall behind in her studies at all. In fact, she was a much more tenacious person than she looked. This was the case at this time. The more dangerous the situation was, the more nervous she was, and the more her mind was in a mess. Instead, she was extremely clear about the current situation in her mind. Unfortunately, calmness couldn't change the current situation. The more she thought about it, the more despair she felt. No, I can't continue to think about this. Otherwise, I will cry like the girl next to me, right? I have to distract myself. She kept thinking about other things in her mind, forcing herself not to look at the corpse that fell 7 or 8 meters away, and the pool of blood that spread out from his body on the ground. Only in this way could she completely control her emotions, and only then could she make her sense of existence appear less and less, just like on TV. It would be best if she was completely unnoticed and forgotten by the two terrible lunatics. In this situation, there weren't many people and things that she could focus her attention on. Her parents, who were far away in China, probably didn't know about this yet. They should have just woken up. At this time, Dad might be whistling to the underground parking lot, igniting his beloved polo car, and driving to the exit. His mom, who particularly disliked the stuffy smell of the underground garage, was probably touching up her makeup in front of the vanity mirror at the entrance of the neighborhood. She was muttering to herself about why his dad wasn't driving the car out yet. He was always so slow. These ordinary scenes appeared in her mind in this situation, but it made her heart throb with pain. If I die and the news spreads back to the country, my father, mother, grandparents, uncle, aunt, cousin, and the others will definitely cry their hearts out, right? No, I can't be like this anymore. I have to think of something happy. Sun Xiaoxuan silently cheered herself on and shifted her attention to Chen Guang. How on earth did I fall in love with that guy? Since when did she subconsciously look for him every time she entered the classroom? Did it start from freshman year? Sun Xiaoxuan actually couldn't remember. It seemed that she and Chen Guang didn't have any deep memories. It was so plain, without any warning or reason, that she couldn't help but fall in love with him. This was different from the TV series. There wasn't so much excitement, and there was no separation of life and death. However, Sun Xiaoxuan didn't regret it. She knew very well that this was real life, a real life. Do you have to find a reason to fall in love with someone? If you can really find a reason, then maybe it's not just pure love, right? Sometimes Gao Ye scolded her. Although Sun Xiaoxuan never admitted it, she knew in her heart that she was right. It's not like no one wants him. Why do you put yourself so low? Why do you have to only look at him? In the past, Sun Xiaoxuan had never directly answered Gao Ye's questions. Now, she could only silently say in her heart, Gao Ye, I still don't know. Even now, I might die in the next second. If you want me to find a reason, I also don't know. I just can't control my heart and eyes. What can I do? Perhaps, what happened to Pan Jiang was a very memorable thing, but compared to what he experienced in Shangjiang, it was really not worth mentioning. Sun Xiaoxuan often envied others. She envied Jin Shiyue, who could pretend to be his girlfriend to protect him when he was in a difficult situation. She envied Teacher Zhua, who could stand with him in the court against Wang Ren. She envied Wen, who was so perfect that it seemed that women standing beside her would pale in comparison. More importantly, she, who was like a goddess, could be more open to Chen Guang than herself. Especially after seeing his desperate efforts in Shangjiang, Sun Xiaoxuan felt that she really didn't deserve Chen Guang. She also wanted to give up more than once, but she never succeeded. She couldn't bear to. From time to time, she would also think about how she wished that one day, she could be like the others and experience more things with him. She could either give up directly, or perhaps, she could walk into his heart a little more. But she didn't expect this situation to come without warning, and it came so violently. It even made people want to give up the hope of living from the beginning. By the way, Chen Guang seems to be in Detroit now. Right now, he should have just finished his world arm wrestling competition. Maybe he is at the celebration party, clinking glasses with people, drinking with people, and laughing with people. If the news of this matter is broadcast on TV, will he see it? If he sees it, what will he think? Will he be sad for my death? Will he stand in front of my tombstone and sprinkle a flower petal for me? Can I touch his cheek in the state of my soul and hear him say that he misses me or likes me? Sun Xiaoxuan touched her cheek. She had held back for so long and had never shed a tear. But when she thought of Chen Guang, her tears fell uncontrollably, streaking down her cheeks and dripping on the ground. But her body didn't tremble, and she didn't choke. It was just that the tears couldn't stop flowing out of her eyes, like a broken dam. Her vision was hazy. No matter how she rubbed her eyes, she couldn't see anything clearly. But the picture in her mind became clearer. The dusty memories in her mind seemed to be blown away by a gust of wind, revealing the dribs and drabs hidden under the sand. Classmate, are you also in the environmental sciences? My name is Chen Guang, nice to meet you. Do you need me to help you move things? Our class monitor can only be Sun Xiaoxuan. You asked me why I hit Pan Jiang? He played with someone else's girlfriend for a few days and then dumped her. He took advantage of her and still acted innocent. He talks about it all the time. Now, all the boys and girls want to quit school. No one cares about this kind of scum, but I do. Class monitor's son, He Ming's family is so poor, why can't he get a stipend? What? There are no more spots. There are only 3 spots in a class. How about this, you tell He Ming that the counselor gave us another one, then give him the 2,000 yuan. It's okay, you know I don't lack money. He Ming often turns on the water for me, I owe him a lot of favors. There's a senior sister who committed suicide. F***ck. This Wang bastard, class monitor's son, I'm warning you, you have to be careful. Don't worry, if that Wang bastard really comes looking for trouble, tell me, is there still any law? Okay, I promise you, as long as Pan Jiang doesn't come looking for trouble, and doesn't always look like a bear, I'll definitely get along with him. Class monitor, save me, I'm level 4 again. I swear, I'm really studying hard. Class monitor, help me apply for a day off tomorrow, I have something to do. It's nothing, there's really nothing at home. I'm not tired, driving is more interesting than studying. Why are you guys donating money to me, what are you talking about? Even if the sky falls down, I can hold it up. My mom can too, who doesn't have an illness. Small problem. All the images, in the end, condensed into a surveillance video. Chen Guang appeared in the hall of Qin Yixuan, kicked open the door of the private room, and ruthlessly knocked Pan Jiang to the ground. That's right, this was the scene of him beating up Pan Jiang in Qin Yixuan to save Sun Xiaoxuan. Sun Xiaoxuan covered his mouth tightly, biting hard on his palms, using the pain to suppress the urge to choke and cry out. I can't cry. I can't accept this. I don't want to die. I wish I could leave this place safely, with the courage to escape from death, stand in front of him bravely, and force him to say, I like you. Bang! Gunshots rang out again, this time, without any warning, 2 lunatics killed a hostage. It was the girl who had been sobbing beside Sun Xiaoxuan. How annoying. The lunatic who fired the shot mumbled, his face full of silence, then turned back to look out the window. Police lights were flashing outside. Neil Town's local police department had already turned out in full force and gathered outside the stadium, but it was useless. The police force of a small town was simply not enough. They didn't even have a professional sniper. It was impossible to threaten these 2 hostage takers. Sun Xiaoxuan bit her palms even harder. The closer death was, the more terrified she was, and the more unwilling she was. She actually knew very well that with Chen Guang's personality, if he really found out about this at this time, even if he couldn't make it in time, he would definitely rush over like a madman. Perhaps it was useless, but he was that kind of person. Just like what happened in Wenxing Town, although she didn't know what happened after he left the internet cafe, or what he did, the result was that the matter that caused such a huge commotion actually disappeared without a trace. No one told Sun Xiaoshuan the truth of that incident, but a girl's sixth sense told her that it must have something to do with Qin Guang, because he disappeared for a few days after that because of his injuries. Yes, if he knew, he would definitely come today. You're tuning in to the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.